Chapter 3202. Yes, I've seen them before. However, those cultivators are very powerful, so it's best if you don't go near them. The old eagle kindly reminded him, but after some thought, he added, however, you seem to be more powerful than them. Even if you encounter them, you should be fine. Fengjiu looked at the sky, then at the surroundings, and finally said, since you've captured me, I'll rest here for the night. Hearing this, the old eagle seemed to want to say something, but when he met the other party's eyes, he couldn't bring himself to object. He could only nod and say, all right. However, you can't harm my children. Fengjiu lay down in the nest and said, all right, as long as they don't provoke me. Originally, he hadn't had a good rest during the 3 days of refining pills, and it was the same here. Now that he was at the cliff, he could finally have a good rest. The old eagle's nest was high up on the cliff, and it could be said that resting here with the old eagle's guard was very safe. Thus, Fengjiu relaxed and slept in the nest. The nest was occupied, and the young eagles could only shrink to the side, not daring to disturb the little bird that had taken over their nest. This little bird looked very harmless, and its small body wasn't very big, but its fighting strength was astonishing. After seeing the previous battle, they were already traumatized by this little bird and didn't dare to eat it. Fengjiu slept soundly. High up in the sky, it was quiet and serene, and a cool breeze gently brushed against her body, making her feel very comfortable. It was also because she slept so soundly that when night fell and the sky turned dark, there was a flash of light from her body, and she silently returned to her original appearance, returning to her human form. This scene shocked the old eagle that was keeping watch, as well as the young eagles that were huddled in a corner of the nest. They thought that they had seen wrongly, and shook their heads to look again. Where the little bird had been sleeping, there was now a human sleeping, and it was a beautiful human wearing a red robe. Heavens! This little bird with astonishing fighting strength actually turned into a human. Was she originally a human, or had she cultivated into a human form? For a moment, both old eagle and young eagle stared at the red ball, wanting to see what it was. Perhaps it was these pairs of eagle eyes staring at Fengjiu that woke her up from her deep sleep. She opened her eyes and glanced at the eagle, asking, why are you staring at me so late at night? How can I sleep with you staring at me like that? Perhaps because she had slept, her voice carried a trace of laziness. Especially in the night, it sounded even more seductive. Old eagle pointed at Fengjiu with his wings and stammered, You turned into a human. I've always been a human. Fengjiu raised her hand and yawned as she spoke casually. However, the moment she raised her hand and saw her red clothes and palms, she couldn't help but be stunned. She sat up and lowered her head to look at her body. She had actually returned to her human form? Could it be that the effects of the medicine have worn off? She couldn't help but exclaim in pleasant surprise. She still felt that her human form was more comfortable. Now that she had returned to her human form, she immediately asked, Old Eagle, is there a water source nearby? I want to take a bath. Taking a bath in the middle of the night. Chapter 3203. Fengjiu stuck her head out of the nest and looked down. Due to the height, she couldn't see anything, so she said to Old Eagle, Bring me down. Old Eagle was a little unwilling, but it didn't dare to refuse. Instead, it asked, You're a human cultivator. Don't you know how to fly on a sword? Why do you need me to bring you down? I'm not familiar with the terrain below, and it's already so late at night. I'll go take a bath. I'll be more at ease with you watching over me. With that said, she smiled and shot Old Eagle a glance. Who told you to bring me back? Tell me, if I don't look for you, who else should I look for? Old Eagle couldn't help but stifle its anger when it heard this. In the end, it didn't say anything. Instead, it let out a breath of air and flapped its wings to fly down to the nest, allowing Fengjiu to climb onto its back. Fengjiu leaped up and grabbed Old Eagle's feathers with both hands. As she flew down, she felt the speed of her descent quicken. The night wind blew against her face, causing her to feel a stinging pain. After a while, she arrived at the bottom. Sure enough, there was a water source below. It seemed to be the mouth of a spring, sparkling under the moonlight. "You want me to stand guard here?" Old Eagle asked as it looked around. "It's already so late at night. Even if there are demonic beasts here, there'll be demonic wolves. I'm not good at dealing with demonic wolves." Fengjiu took off her outer clothes and walked towards the mouth of the spring. "Stand guard. I'll be done soon." With that said, she took off her outer clothes and quickly entered the water. The cool spring water seeped into her skin, and the refreshing feeling made her feel much more energetic. She dove into the water, washed her hair, and soaked for a while before hearing Old Eagle's anxious voice. "Quickly come up. There are demonic wolves coming." A woo! Wolf howls reverberated through the forest. It was impossible to tell where they came from, but the ground was shaking slightly. It seemed like the demonic wolves were chasing after something. Moreover, there were quite a few of them. Feng Jiu frowned. What she said really happened. Just as she wrung the water out of her hair and was about to get up, she vaguely saw a man with scars all over his body running towards her. When she saw who it was, she immediately slapped the water with her palm. As the water splashed, she turned around and flew out of the water. She took out her clothes from the space and quickly put them on. In the blink of an eye, she had put on her clothes. However, her hair was still wet and was still dripping with water. The injured man who was running over only saw an eagle staring at him from above. Just as he was about to run in another direction, he caught a glimpse of a woman in the water. Before he could take a closer look, he saw a splash of water forming a curtain. A woman jumped out of the water and instantly put on a red robe. The woman was dressed in a dazzling red dress. She had a slim waist, and the moment she landed on the ground, her ink-black hair was tossed aside, and water droplets splashed everywhere. Her enchanting and charming face instantly made him mesmerized. That alluring beauty made him feel as if he was looking at a fairy from the ninth heaven who had accidentally landed in the mortal world. However, in the next moment, he abruptly returned to his senses. It was because her clear eyes were cold and breathtaking, and they carried a noble and inviolable bearing. It caused him to forcefully stop the thoughts in his heart, and he couldn't help but concentrate his mind. "Fairy run, a pack of demonic wolves is coming." After the man returned to his senses, he immediately warned her. However, he still instinctively ran in the direction of the red figure. Chapter 32:04. Each of the demon wolves that were chasing after them weighed around 150 kilograms. Their eyes were blood red, and their bodies were huge. Their movements were agile, especially the one in the lead. Every time it ran, the ground would shake. It could be seen that its weight was not light. She watched as one of the wolves roared and pounced toward the man. Her hand swept through her hair that was dripping with water. The water droplets instantly gathered between her fingers, and her aura formed a sharp ice blade that shot toward the wolf. Whoosh! The sharp sound cut through the air and shot towards the demon wolf at an extremely fast speed. The speed was so fast that the demon wolf, which had already pounced forward, could not stop its body from retreating and was pierced by the ice blade. Ayo! The huge body fell from the sky due to that blow. It landed heavily on the ground and let out a miserable howl. The howl became weaker and weaker until finally the body twitched a few times and stopped moving. This was because one of the ice blades had struck the vital point between the demon wolf's eyebrows. One strike was enough to take its life. When the injured man heard the sound behind him, he couldn't help but turn around to look. What he saw made him stunned. He abruptly turned around to look at the beautiful red-clothed woman standing in front of him in disbelief. She actually killed a demon wolf in one move? His heart was shocked, but he still quickly walked to her side. "Miss, no, fairy." Fengjiu looked at the remaining 11 demon wolves, and a dark light flashed through her clear eyes. Perhaps it was because she had killed a demon wolf in one move, but the other demon wolves that were originally running towards them all stopped. They didn't attack and instead surrounded them. "Human, you got guts." The leading demon wolf king stared at Fengjiu and angrily bared its sharp fangs. It even stared at Fengjiu with drool dripping from its mouth. It looked as if it wanted to pounce on her and tear her apart. Feng Jiao brushed her black hair with both hands, and her spiritual power surged, instantly drying the dripping black hair. Her silky black hair was loose, and she took out a ribbon to tie it up. She looked at the demon Wolf King and said, "If you don't want to die in my hands, then leave quickly. Otherwise, I don't mind letting all of you die here." His voice was neither fast nor slow. The confidence and nonchalance in his voice caused the demon wolves to hesitate when they heard it. The demon Wolf King stared at the absolute beauty in front of it. It saw that there was no fear between her brows, nor was there any panic. On the contrary, when it met her eyes, it actually felt a sense of fear. The pressure and aura in her eyes were too sharp and powerful, causing it to involuntarily take a step back. Inexplicably, it felt that this human woman was terrifying, especially when she had killed a demon wolf in one move. It could be seen that her strength was not ordinary. The intelligent demon Wolf King thought about it again and again. In the end, it gritted its teeth and raised its head to howl. It then said to the man, "I'll let you go this time. If we meet again, we'll definitely tear you apart." With that, the demon Wolf King turned around and left with the 10 demon wolves. Just like when they came, the sound of 10,000 horses galloping caused the ground to tremble. Chapter 32:05. However, when he regained his senses and was about to thank the woman for saving his life, he discovered that the red-clothed woman who was originally standing at the side had disappeared. "Fairy? Fairy?" he shouted as he looked around, but he didn't see a single person. It was as if the woman had never appeared, vanishing without a trace. If not for the corpse of a monster wolf lying on the ground in front of him, he really would have thought that it was a hallucination caused by his injuries. Feng Jiao, who was sitting on Old Eagle's back, returned to the cliff and lightly jumped back into the nest to lie down comfortably. She lightly exhaled and took out some wine for a space to drink as she said, "Old Eagle, your nest is actually quite warm, and the grass is also quite comfortable. At least in this forest, a nest like yours isn't bad." Feng Jiao chuckled as she looked at the stars in the sky. "I can also enjoy the night scenery and admire the moon." Old Eagle's mouth twitched when he heard this. He flapped his wings and squatted to the side, asking, "Why are you leaving after saving that person? That's a human, one of your kind. Since I'm already here, I can't leave so quickly. Moreover, the old man who sent me here probably didn't just let me walk around. Think about it. I still need to familiarize myself with this place. Tomorrow, I'll go and practice with the monsters in this forest." She tilted her head back and drank. Seeing Old Eagle staring at her, she asked with a smile, "What? You want to chase me away? Are you afraid that I'll occupy your nest?" Old Eagle moved his mouth and said in a low, muffled voice, "I wouldn't dare." Even if he had an opinion, he didn't dare to say it. This pervert was someone who could kill a monster wolf with a single move. In any case, she was still a human, so she wouldn't occupy his nest forever. However, Old Eagle never imagined that he would bring back such a troublesome thing. If he had known earlier, he would have definitely avoided her from afar. "Hee, don't worry, I'll be leaving tomorrow. I'll be borrowing your nest to rest tonight." As she spoke, she drank a few mouthfuls of wine and put it back into her space. She threw a few spirit fruits to the young eagles before closing her eyes to rest. When the eagles saw the spirit fruit, they couldn't help but cry out excitedly. They pounced on the spirit fruit and started pecking at it. Feng Jiao slept until the next morning. Although Old Eagle, who was keeping watch at night, didn't keep a close eye on Feng Jiao, he still glanced at her from time to time. However, when dawn came and the sun rose, he inadvertently glanced at Feng Jiao. Just as he was about to look away, he was dumbfounded and stared at Feng Jiao with wide eyes. How did this human become a cloud-swallowing beast? It stared at the red-furred, cloud-swallowing beast with its eagle eyes and was speechless for a long time. It couldn't understand how a human could suddenly turn into a bird, then into a human, and then into a cloud-swallowing beast. Those little eagles had also woken up long ago. Seeing that the human had changed again, they could not help but shrink together, not daring to make a sound. Thus, These pairs of eagle eyes stared at the sleeping cloud-swallowing beast until the little beast moved its body, raised its hand, and yawned before opening its eyes. The moment Fengjiu opened her eyes, she saw a furry paw. She was startled and blinked, thinking that she had seen wrong. However, when she closed her eyes again, it was still a furry paw. Chapter 32:06. That damned old man. She couldn't help but curse. Seeing her hand turn into a claw in the anger from being woken up, she was about to explode. That old man's beast form pill allowed her to turn into a beast during the day and a human at night? How long would it take for the pill's effects to wear off? Wouldn't she have to switch between beast and beast every day? Thinking of this, she only felt sullen. Her master was stronger than her, and the pills he refined were also better than hers. Throwing her here for a mere beast form pill, she was simply asking for trouble. Seeing the cloud-swallowing beast sitting there angrily cursing, old Eagle couldn't help but hesitate before asking, "Are you all right?" Actually, what he wanted to ask was, "How did you turn into a beast?" And a cloud-swallowing beast? But seeing her angry face, he didn't dare to ask. Fengjiu took a deep breath and exhaled, calming her anger from waking up early in the morning. Then she said, "Send me down." "All right." Old Eagle flew out and lowered his wings in front of her. Fengjiu jumped up and laid on Old Eagle's back. After reaching the bottom, she said to Old Eagle, "You can go back. I'll walk on my own." Old Eagle nodded, then flapped its wings and flew up. In the air, it looked down and saw that the cloud-swallowing beast had shrunk into its pet form and was walking in the forest. Although it was small, its red fur was still very dazzling. Retracting his gaze, he thought to himself, "I wonder which unlucky person will meet her." Fengjiu walked in the forest and walked out of the dense forest. She came to a place where the weeds were half a person's height. Because she was too small, she couldn't see the path ahead. Thus, she prepared to turn into a little bird and fly into the air. But at this moment, she heard a voice. "There's actually such a beautiful little beast here." It was a girl's voice, surprised and excited. Fengjiu turned around, but the moment she turned around, a silver net covered her head. Got it," the woman said excitedly. She turned to the middle-aged man beside her and said, "Thank you, father." Just as she was about to step forward, she was pulled back by the middle-aged man. "Father, what's wrong?" the woman asked curiously as she looked at her father, who was holding her hand. "This little beast is a cloud-swallowing beast, but I've never seen a cloud-swallowing beast with fiery red fur. It looks a bit strange, so it's better to be careful," the middle-aged man said as he looked at the little beast trapped in the silver net. He then said to the two people beside him, "You two go up and take a look. Be careful, don't get hurt." "Yes." Two men in their 30s stepped forward to collect the net. They thought they would be attacked by the little beast, but they didn't expect that the little beast would just squat on the ground and look at them without moving. Even when they collected the silver net and caught the little beast, it didn't resist or attack. "Patriarch, this little beast looks very tame," the two men said to the middle-aged man. Hearing this, the woman couldn't help but quickly step forward and take the little beast whose fur was being pulled. She said, "Don't pull its fur like that. It's so small it'll hurt." The two men smiled helplessly and retreated to the side. Chapter 32:07. Fengjiu lay in a lady's arms and was hugged tightly by her, pressing against her soft chest, making her speechless. Unexpectedly, a silver net covered her, and she was caught just like that. Seeing that the other party didn't seem to want to kill her, she was too lazy to move and just lay down to rest. The middle-aged man looked at the little beast and said with some surprise, "I didn't expect this little beast to be so docile. Maybe it's because it's a little beast." Otherwise, he really couldn't think of anything that would allow a small beast to be so tame and survive in this demonic beast forest. "Father, let's rest for a while." The lady looked at her father and said. Hearing this, the middle-aged man looked around and nodded. "All right, let's rest for a while. Let's go over there." He pointed to the front and led them there. Fengjiu, who was lying in the lady's arms, lazily looked at them and saw that there were only 4 of them, including the lady. The strongest was the middle-aged man, and the other 2 were not too bad. However, it was strange that such a weak person like this lady was brought here. After all, this was the demonic beast forest, and it was extremely dangerous. The slightest carelessness could cause one to fall into a hopeless situation and become a meal for the demonic beasts. In such a place, they actually brought a young lady who wasn't very strong and had a hidden illness. They were really tired of living. However, what she didn't expect was that after they sat down to rest for a while, the young lady actually shot a snake that was coiled around a tree and pushed it in front of her. "Come, eat something. You eat this snake meat?" The lady moved the decapitated snake in front of her and put the little beast down. "Eat quickly. Although these little demonic beasts are a little weak, they should be nourishing for you." Feng Jiu's mouth twitched. Nourishing? Which eye of hers saw that she needed to eat snake meat to nourish herself. Furthermore, this whole snake was placed in front of her. How was she going to eat it? Did they really think she was a beast? "Miss, this little beast seems to be a little picky. It actually doesn't eat snake meat," a man at the side said with a smile. He looked at the little beast with a look of disdain as it turned its eyes away to look at the sky. He actually felt that it was so human-like, very cute, very cute. Not eating snake meat? Why don't we change our seed?" The woman saw that the little beast was indeed disgusted, so she looked at the man who spoke. "Big Brother Chung, you keep all the corpses of the demonic beasts we killed along the way. Take some out for the little beast to eat." Hearing this, the man thought for a moment and said, "All right." As he spoke, he took out a dead demon pig from his spatial ring and said, "Let's roast some as well. Replenish your energy." "All right," the woman replied with a smile. She cut off a small piece of the demonic pig's meat and handed it to the little beast. Come, try this. This is not snake meat. This is demonic pig meat. The demonic pig meat is very fresh and delicious. I'm sure you'll like it after you eat a small piece." Feng Jiu turned her head away in disdain. There was no way she would like a piece of raw demonic beast meat. In order to prevent the woman from feeding her the raw meat, she directly jumped into the woman's arms and buried her head to rest. Chapter 3208. The father and daughter were chatting while the other 2 were busy picking up sticks to roast the meat. Time passed unknowingly, and it wasn't until Feng Jiu, who was resting in the woman's arms, smelled the smell of roasted meat that she leaped out of the woman's arms and squatted by the bonfire while looking at the roasted meat that had been roasted to a golden color. It seems like this little beast likes to eat cooked food." When the man saw the little beast staring at the roasted meat, he couldn't help but smile. This little beast is also strange. The beasts here all eat raw food. Why does it like cooked food? Could it be that it was raised by a human? Did it get lost? The other man also said, looking at the squatting little beast. When the woman heard this, she was startled. "Raised by a human? You're saying that this little beast has an owner?" The middle-aged man nodded. "That's possible. This little beast is obviously different from the other beasts here. It doesn't eat raw food and is not afraid of humans. It's normal to say that it was raised by a human." Feng Jiu turned to look at them, then stared at the roasted meat. When the woman saw this, she went forward and cut a small piece of roasted meat, wrapped it in a tree leaf, and handed it to the little beast. "Come, eat." She was about to put on the ground, who knew that the little beast would grab the piece of meat wrapped in the tree leaf with its 2 paws. Just like that, it squatted and hugged the piece of meat to eat. Looking at this appearance that was very similar to a human, the woman was startled. Maybe it really was raised by a human. Feng Jiu ignored them and ate the roasted meat while listening to them talk. Only then did he know that there were not only these few people, but there were also some who got lost and were now looking for those who got lost. The reason they came in was because of a big monster in the monster beast forest. They wanted to take the monster beast horn and exchange it with the alchemist to cure the woman's disease. Listening to their conversation, she leaped into the woman's arms after eating her fill. She felt that this temporary bed was quite comfortable. In the afternoon, the few of them continued to walk forward, and Feng Jiu was also brought along by the woman. In any case, she felt that she would have to stay here for a while. so she might as well take a stroll. She wanted to see when the effects of the beast form pill would wear off, and how long would she have to stay here before she could return to Dan Wang Valley. She had a feeling that if she were to leave this place with the other cultivators, she would never be able to return to Pill King Valley. If she wanted to return, she would have to continue staying here. She believed that after a period of time, the old man would still bring her back. But if she were to leave this place, it would be hard to say, especially since Du Fan and the others were still there. He wondered how they were doing. Along the way, the demonic beasts that they encountered along the way were all dealt with by the few of them. There were no major problems. After a day, she also saw that the combat strength of these few people was indeed not weak. However, when the sun set and the sky darkened, she suddenly regained her senses. She had to go. Once the sun went down, she would change back into her human form. If they saw her changing from a beast to a human, wouldn't they be scared out of their wits? Thus, while they weren't paying attention, she ran away like a wisp of smoke. With a few leaps, she disappeared into the grass. When the woman was about to give the little beast the roasted meat, she turned around and found that the little beast that was lying on the rock had disappeared. She couldn't help but be shocked. "Father, did you see the little beast?" Chapter 3209. The woman was slightly unhappy. She glanced at the surroundings and said, perhaps it went back to its owner. Not long after Fengjiu left, the sky darkened, and she returned to her human form. She looked at her body and then looked back. After thinking for a while, she took a deep breath and rushed into the depths of the forest. She planned to use the demon beasts here to practice and improve her strength. On the other side, Wanyan Xianhua was following behind Jun Jushang in the Xiaoyao sect. She looked at the white-robed man in front of her and smiled. Although her injuries had healed during this period of time, and her body and soul had returned to their original positions, and Jun Jushang had been trying to drive her away, she didn't want to leave just like that. After so many years, it was rare for her to meet a man who could move her heart. If she didn't take the initiative to chase after him, how could she be Wanyan Xianhua? In front of her, Jun Jushang was walking with his hands behind his back. He suddenly stopped and looked back at the woman who had been following him. He frowned and said, "How long do you plan to follow me?" "Xiao Yao Jun, you're too heartless. Tell me, we're already in such a relationship, yet you still want to chase me away? How am I supposed to live after I go back?" Wanyan Xianhua sighed softly and looked at him with a coquettish expression. "This monarch saved you, and you still want to rely on this monarch?" He suppressed his anger and stared at Wanyan Xianhua. He felt that this woman was challenging his bottom line again and again. Seeing the anger in the calm eyes of the person in front of her, Wanyan Xianhua covered her mouth and smiled charmingly. "Xiao Yao Jun, you have been alone for so many years. Don't you think it's time to find someone by your side?" Her eyes were full of affection and her lips were smiling. Her beautiful eyes turned to look at him in a flirtatious manner. "I, Wanyan Xianhua, have only met a man like Xiao Yao Jun who can move my heart in all these years. Although you're a little old, that doesn't stop me from liking you. I'm not interested in you." Jun Jushang said coldly. "It doesn't matter. As the saying goes, it is easy for a woman to chase a man. I am interested in you, so I will take the initiative." She walked in front of him and hugged his arm. She leaned against him and said, "Xiao Yao Jun, don't you think so?" Looking at the woman who was leaning on him, Jun Jushang waved his hand and tried to push her away. Who would have thought that she would hug him even tighter? "Let go. I won't. You." Jun Jushang had never been able to deal with a woman in his life. He had sternly spoken to her and even used his aura to intimidate her. However, this woman wasn't afraid of him tonight. She was still tightly clinging to him. He couldn't help but feel a sense of defeat. "Xiao Yao Jun, you said that you're an unmarried man, and I'm an unmarried woman. Now that our relationship is like this, and the disciples of the Xiao Yao sect know about us, don't you think you should give me an explanation?" Jun Jushang glanced at her with a gloomy face. "You are you, and I am me. We have nothing to do with each other." Wanyan Xianhua looked at him in surprise. She covered her mouth and said, "We bathed together and you still say that we have nothing to do with each other? So you want to take advantage of me and not admit it? You know who took advantage of who? Junju Shang said with a dark face. Chapter 32:10. Blue veins appeared on Junju Shang's forehead when he heard these words. His heart was boiling with anger. He took a deep breath and exhaled. He pushed Wanyan Qianhua away. Then, he turned around and left with large strides. He walked towards the bamboo forest. Wanyan Qianhua was pushed away by a force. She lost her balance and retreated a few steps. Just as she was about to follow, she bumped into a barrier that he had set up. Looking at the isolation barrier in front of her, Wanyan Qianhua was stunned. She then laughed. Junju Shang, you coward! Seeing that she couldn't enter the barrier, she thought for a while and walked back. She was prepared to walk around. She had been here for a while, and most of the people here knew her. Just as she had said, the people in the sect had been spreading rumors about her relationship with Junju Shang. Therefore, their attitude towards her could be considered to be quite respectful. Since she had nothing to do, she went to a big tree behind a rockery to rest. The lush leaves covered her, so that the people below couldn't see her. The sun also didn't shine on her body. And resting here is quite good. It's comfortable. She murmured. Yawning, she closed her eyes and rested. She didn't know how much time had passed when she heard some strange noises while she was sleeping soundly. She opened her eyes and looked around. She saw a man and a woman hugging each other tightly under a tree not far away in broad daylight. They were doing something out of the ordinary. TSK. The world's morals are degenerating with each passing day. Their courage is too big. Although this place is a bit remote, they should wait for the sun to set if they want to do this kind of thing. Otherwise, wouldn't it be very embarrassing if they were discovered? However, this woman's figure is also very good. Look at this man's face of enjoyment. His hand is even reaching into the woman's clothes. TSK, this courage. She stood on the tree and looked at the woman's clothes. Half of her clothes were already taken off, revealing her snow-white shoulders. Her chest was faintly discernible, and her long skirt was gently lifted, revealing a pair of long, slender, and smooth legs. On the other hand, the man's clothes were intact. He was panting slightly. He had an anxious look on his face as he buried his head in the woman's chest. When his hand reached under the woman's body, it was caught by her. Don't! The woman half pushed him away and sat up. She pulled up her clothes and looked around. With a shy expression, she asked, Senior Marshal Brother Chun, when will you come to my house to propose marriage? The man's eyes flashed. He chuckled and gently lifted the woman's chin. With an affectionate look, he said, There have been a lot of things happening in the family recently. After a while, I will send a message back to the family and invite them to propose marriage. As he spoke, his hands began to move erratically again. Don't worry, I will definitely propose marriage. I will definitely marry you. Hearing these words, Wanyan Qianhua laughed in his heart. This man clearly wanted to take advantage of her. The sweet words that came out of his mouth could only deceive a little girl. This kind of man who started to take advantage of a woman before marriage, how could he be a good person? He reckoned that if this woman let him get his hands on her, she would definitely dump him in the next instant. Looking at the two people who had fallen together again, she glanced with her beautiful eyes, and an indescribable smile appeared on her beautiful face. Immediately, she waved her hand, and a transparent spirit flew out from her hand towards the two people. Chapter 32:11. Woo-woo, a resentful voice rang out, scaring the two so much that their faces turned pale and they cried out at the same time. Ah, who is it? The man quickly got up, and the woman also quickly pulled her clothes and stood up. She hid behind the man to tidy up her clothes and messy hair. Woo! Another faint howl rang out. They couldn't see what was beside them, but they could feel a cold wind blowing, and their hair stood on end. The two couldn't help but cry out in alarm and quickly leave the place. Wanyan Qianhua chuckled and waved her hand to call the spirit back. She continued to sleep on the tree. In the evening, she jumped down from the tree and walked towards the bamboo forest. She originally wanted to go to Ju Shang's place to take a look, who knew that the barrier was still there and she couldn't pass through. Seeing this, she smiled and walked towards the bamboo house where she lived. However, she didn't expect that the next morning someone would come to report to her. Miss Wan Yin, your clansmen have come to take you back. When she heard this, Wan Yin Qianhua, who was still sleepy, walked out of the bamboo house. She glanced at him and asked, "What did you say?" Inexplicably, when he heard this voice, the steward's heart trembled. He lowered his head and said, "Your clansmen have come to take you back. They're right in front." Wan Yin Qianhua chuckled. "Why are my clansmen here?" This is because the sect leader ordered for the Wan Yin clan to come and take you back," the steward said carefully. "So, you notified them?" Wan Yin Qianhua's beautiful eyes turned and landed on the other side of the bamboo house. "Your sect leader knows." The sect leader knows. Hearing this, she didn't know what to think. She paused for a moment and then walked forward. "Let's go. Bring me to see them." "Yes," the steward said and quickly led her to the front. In front of the side hall, a middle-aged man and a young man were sitting and drinking tea. The young man looked at the entrance of the hall from time to time, as if to see if the person he wanted to see had come. The person in the hall who was receiving the two of them was an elder. The elder glanced at them and smiled. "Don't be anxious. Miss Wan Yin will be here in a moment. She lives in the Bamboo Peak and is a little far from here. She should be here soon after drinking a cup of tea." When the middle-aged man heard this, he put down his teacup and cupped his hands to the elder. "This time, thank you for your help. If Qianhua didn't happen to meet the unfettered sovereign, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to escape this time. We will definitely remember the great kindness of the unfettered sovereign." "Oh, you're too serious." The elder smiled. Although he heard some things about the sect leader and Wan Yin Qianhua, it was inappropriate for him to say more. Therefore, he just smiled and didn't say much. At present, they still had to send Wan Yin Qianhua away. After all, if the sect leader wanted her to leave, they couldn't keep her in the sect. However, Wan Yin Qianhua was not an ordinary woman, and she was not the kind of person who cared about worldly views. This time, between her and the sect leader, it was obvious that she fell in love with him first. It would be difficult to let her leave. She didn't know if these two people had the ability to bring her back from the Xiaoyao sect. Chapter 32:12. He thought for a while. Not long after, the man who was sitting and looking out of the hall stood up happily and went outside. Seeing this, he looked up at the door of the hall. "Qianhua." The man quickly stepped forward. When he saw Wan Yin Qianhua coming in, he was very happy. He looked at her up and down and asked, "Is your injury better? I haven't seen you for so long. I'm really worried." Wan Yin Qianhua looked at the man and nodded slightly. "Thank you for your concern. I'm fine." She pulled away from him and walked inside. At the same time, she looked at the middle-aged man who was sitting. "Qianhua greets, seventh uncle." She bowed to the middle-aged man and called out, "In." The middle-aged man nodded slightly and looked at her. "It seems that your injury should be almost healed." Wan Yin Qianhua smiled slightly. "It's all because Xiaoyao Jun took good care of me. If it weren't for him, my injury wouldn't have healed so quickly." She nodded slightly to the elder and called out, "Hello, elder." When the middle-aged man heard this, he said, "Since your injury has healed, you should go back. You can't keep disturbing Xiaoyao, swordmaster here. This time, we came special to pick you up." "Yes, Qianhua. The people in the clan are very worried about your injury. Now that your injury has healed, you should go back with us." The man's voice paused, looked at the elder and said, "After all, this is the Xiaoyao sect. You are not a disciple of the Xiaoyao sect. It's not appropriate to stay here for a long time." Hearing this, Wan Yin Qianhua smiled and said, "Seventh uncle, I can't go back with you now." "Why?" Before the middle-aged man spoke, the young man had already asked anxiously, "Qianhua, when we just came in, we heard many disciples talking about you and Xiaoyao swordmaster. Do you know how much it will affect your reputation if you stay here?" Ahem. Hearing this, the elder who had been pretending to drink tea and didn't listen to them coughed a little embarrassedly. He put down the teacup and stood up. "You could talk about this first. I remember that I still have something to do." so I'll go back first. If you're not in a hurry to go back, you can stay here for the night. I'll let the disciples arrange for you later." As he spoke, the elder smiled and cupped his hands towards the middle-aged man before turning around to leave. He was too embarrassed to stay behind to accompany the guest, because he was afraid that he would hear something inappropriate. If that happened, it would be awkward for him to stay here. The man looked at her nervously, afraid that he would hear something he didn't want to hear from her. Wanyan Qianhua almost ignored the young man. She looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Seventh uncle, Xiao Yao Jun saved me. I am indebted to him. I have to repay him." Her voice paused, and she looked serious. "Moreover, I can't deny that I am moved by Xiao Yao Jun. For the first time in so many years, I am moved by a man. Although I know that there is some distance between us, and even if I want to be together with him, I'll have to face a lot of criticism and difficulties, but I don't want to give up." Chapter 32:13. He looked at Wanyan Qianhua with a heartbroken and sorrowful look. It seemed that he was attracted to a man for the first time in many years, but he was not the one who hurt this man. The middle-aged man pondered. He didn't get angry, nor did he scold her. He just looked at Wanyan Qianhua with a serious face. After a long time, he asked, "Are you serious? In this life, I only recognize him." Wanyan Qianhua said with determination in her beautiful eyes. Maybe others would say that she had known him for such a short time. How could she have such deep feelings for him? If a woman treated a man like this in the past, she would also feel that she couldn't understand. But when this person was herself, she knew that sometimes falling in love with a person only needed a moment or even just a glance, and it could be forever. She couldn't say why she fell in love with Jun Jushang, because in her eyes, he was a cold man at first. Moreover, he was an old man who she didn't know how many years old. But with those days of contact from the beginning to the end, she didn't know what was going on with her. How did it become real? Even if she knew that this man didn't fall in love with her, even if she knew that this man had been avoiding her and didn't want to have anything to do with her, she still didn't want to give up so easily. Swordmaster Xiao Yao is already hundreds of years old. You actually fell in love with a hundreds of years old man? You actually fell in love with such a person? The young man was a little agitated and angry. He couldn't accept it. He had always liked Qianhua. Everyone in the clan knew that he liked her. But in order to avoid him, she went to the immortal sect to cultivate. She didn't return to the clan for a year. Now, she said that she fell in love with the master of the Xiao Yao sect, Jun Jushang. Why? What was so good about that Jun Jushang? Why could he make her fall in love with him in such a short time? How did he lose to Jun Jushang? He couldn't accept it. Suppressing the anger in his heart, he looked at Wanyan Qianhua and said, "Qianhua, you have to go back with us. You can't stay here. You can't lose your reputation for a hundreds of years old man. You can't disregard the face of our Wanyan clan." Wanyan Qianhua's gaze turned cold. She stared at the man, and a cold aura emanated from her body. "You keep saying 100-year-old old man. Do you know who you're talking about? Who gave you the guts to be so rude to the master of the unfettered sect?" Wanyan Qianhua stood up, flicked his sleeves, and put his hands behind his back. He stared at him coldly. "I, Wanyan Qianhua, know what I'm doing. I don't need you to remind me." When the middle-aged man saw this, he raised his hand and said, "Okay, you two stop arguing. If others hear this, they'll think that something bad has happened." He motioned for them to sit down, and then said to Wanyan Qianhua, "Qianhua, this time, the master of the Xiao Yao sect sent us a message and asked us to come back. From this point of view, he doesn't have any feelings for you. If you continue to stay here, I'm afraid you'll suffer. Seventh uncle is worried about you. He doesn't want you to fall in too deep and get hurt too badly in the future. After all, you and the master of the Xiao Yao sect are." Chapter 32:14. Seeing her firm tone and unwavering expression as she said these words, the middle-aged man pondered for a moment. After a long time, he sighed softly. "Fine. If it was any other disciple in the clan, I naturally wouldn't let them do as they pleased. But since it's you, I will respect your wishes and won't stop you. After returning to the clan, I will also report the situation to the family head. He looked at her and said, since you want to stay, then we won't stay for long. But you have to remember that you chose this path yourself. No matter how many difficulties, criticisms, or pain you encounter in the future, our Wanyin family can't stand up for you. But if you're tired in the future and want to go home, feel free to come back. There will always be a place for you in the Wanyin family. Hearing this, Wanyin Qianhua felt a warm current in her heart. She looked at him and thanked him solemnly. Thank you, seventh uncle. Qianhua knows. She knew because she was the one who fell into this relationship first. She was the one who was moved first. She was the one who insisted on staying here. Therefore, even if she suffered any criticism because of this relationship in the future, the clan couldn't come forward to solve it for her. If that was the case, she would really ruin the reputation of the entire Wanyin family. He could say that there would always be a place for her in the Wanyin family. This was already giving her the greatest tolerance and support. The young man heard these words and looked at this scene, but he couldn't say anything. What else could he say? The person he loved didn't love him back. What else could he say? Then we will go back first. You tell that elder. The middle-aged man said. After saying some good words, he said to the young man, let's go. The man followed his seventh uncle out. He paused and looked back at Wanyin Qianhua. Thousands of words were in that complicated look. In the end, he only said one sentence. Qianhua, take care. With that, he strode out. Wanyin Qianhua didn't send them off. She just watched them leave until their figures disappeared from her sight. However, at this time, she saw the elder come in again. The elder glanced at Wanyin Qianhua. He didn't seem surprised that she didn't leave. He just coughed lightly and said, I heard from the disciples that your seventh uncle and the others left, so I came to take a look. Wanyin Qianhua nodded. They left. I will stay here for a while. Hearing this, the elder smiled. That's good. You can stay here. You can stay for as long as you want. But the sect master, I will tell him. Elder, you don't have to worry. She said, bowed to the elder, and then turned to leave. Seeing Wanyin Qianhua leave, the elder stood there and stroked his beard. He thought to himself, the sect master has cultivated for many years and experienced countless experiences and tests, but he hasn't experienced the tribulation of love. This time, he saved Wanyin Qianhua so coincidentally. It's probably related to his tribulation of love. I just don't know what will happen to these two people in the future. From his point of view, Wanyin Qianhua was very outstanding in all aspects. He was also very compatible with the sect master. If the two of them could have a happy ending, it could be considered that one of his worries had been removed. Chapter 32:15. Wanyin Qianhua walked towards the bamboo forest. Seeing that the barrier had been removed, she couldn't help but curl her lips into a flirtatious smile. She playfully said, could it be that you thought she had left? That's why you removed the barrier? She walked forward and arrived in front of the bamboo house. She saw a man in white holding an ancient book and reading it. She pushed the door open and walked in. It seems like Xiao Yao Jun is very free. Her beautiful eyes fell on him. She glanced at the book in his hand and said, with Xiao Yao Jun's knowledge, do you still need to read this kind of miscellaneous book? As she spoke, she had already entered the house. Her body seemed to have no bones as she sat down on the couch next to Jun Jushang. She supported her chin with one hand and looked at him with interest. Xiao Yao Jun, how could you let someone send a message to the Wanyin clan and let them take me back? You're not very kind to do this. Jun Jushang looked at her in front of him. His voice was calm and even carried a trace of coldness as he asked, why haven't you left? Didn't I tell you already? My heart is in love with the unfettered Lord. How can I leave before the unfettered Lord reciprocates my feelings? She twirled her fingers and played with her hair. Her beautiful eyes fell on the man in front of her. She said it lightly, as if she was just casually saying it. However, only she knew that she was nervous, and shy. After all, as a woman, how could she remain calm when confessing to a man she loved? However, she had always been a person who didn't care about trifles. She didn't care about how others looked at her. That was why she could say it so calmly. That was why she was able to be ignored time and time again. After being ignored, she still hoped to get a response. She knew that for a woman with such a beautiful appearance like her, many people wouldn't believe her if she said that she loved a man, because she had the appearance of a bad woman. Every frown and smile of hers had a kind of seductive charm. She gave people the feeling that she was a bad woman who wouldn't give her true feelings. Because of this, if she wanted to get a response from someone she loved, she was afraid that she would have to pay more than others. It's impossible between you and me. Don't waste your time on me, Jun Jushang said. He put down the book in his hand and stood up. He was about to walk out when he saw that the boneless woman had already arrived in front of him and was blocking his way. If you haven't tried, how do you know it's impossible with me? Wanyan Qianhua looked at him, only to see that his calm and indifferent eyes were bottomless, as deep as the sea. It was impossible to see what he was thinking. Jun Jushang frowned as he looked at her. His voice was as cold as an icicle. You're a woman, yet you're so shameless. If I knew that you would pester me because I saved you, then I wouldn't have saved you. As soon as he finished speaking, he flicked his sleeves and strode outside. Wanyan Qianhua listened to the words that pierced her heart like ice shards. She only felt a chill spread from her heart, causing her to involuntarily shiver. Chapter 32:16. She stood there, thinking about something. She didn't move for a long time. After a while, she raised her head and looked outside. Jun Jueshang was nowhere to be seen. However, what he said just now was still echoing in her ears. Am I really shameless? She murmured softly, with a trace of confusion in her eyes. Do you regret saving me? In the past, it was those men who chased after her. Now, it was her turn to chase after someone. However, she was ruthlessly rejected time and time again. At this moment, she clearly felt how hurtful the rejection was. Although she knew that it wouldn't be easy to get this love from him, and if they were to be together, they would have to go through a lot of problems. However, she couldn't help but feel a trace of confusion at this moment. Was it really just her wishful thinking? No matter how hard she tried, she wouldn't be able to go far. Did she really want to continue? She, who had never experienced *****, was at a loss at this moment. The words she said to her seventh uncle were still echoing in her ears. However, she was at a loss at this moment. I wonder what she would do if it was Xiao Jiao. She murmured and thought of Feng Jiao. What would she do if it was her? She walked out slowly and walked back to her bamboo house listlessly. Therefore, she didn't see that after she left, a white figure walked out from the bamboo forest and looked at her quietly with his hands clasped behind his back. Jun Jushang's eyes were as deep as the sea. His body was still as indifferent as before. He quietly watched Wanyan Qianhua return to her bamboo house. Then, he closed his eyes and covered his expression as he walked into the house. After returning to her bamboo house, Wanyan Qianhua took out her communication jade with Feng Jiao. She was hesitating whether she should ask Feng Jiao or not. Therefore, she kept playing with the communication jade in her hand. Only when the sky outside was getting dark did she decide to tell Feng Jiao about it. At the same time, she wanted to ask what she would do if it was her. On the other side, Feng Jiao didn't know about it. Because of the beast form elixir, she had been in her beast form during the day and human form during the night. She had been wandering in the forest. On this day, as the sky was getting dark, she found a cave residence and planned to cultivate her spiritual aura. Therefore, she didn't notice the message on the communication jade in her space. She stayed in the forest for half a month. During this half a month, she went to the forest to hunt demonic beasts during the day to improve her reaction and fighting strength. When she returned to her human form at night, she cultivated her spiritual aura. Just like that, half a month had passed. This morning, when she opened her eyes and found that she was still in her human form, she couldn't help but smile. Is the effect of the beast form elixir finally gone? It's been half a month. That's really long. But thinking about it, how could a 7th level beast form elixir restore her original form in 2 or 3 days? Looks like I have to celebrate today. She was in a good mood today and wanted to celebrate. When she walked in the forest, some small demonic beasts around her automatically avoided her. After all, during this half a month, all the demonic beasts in this area were afraid of her. When they saw her, they would turn around and leave. Chapter 32:17. Other than these people, there was also the young man she had saved and 2 injured elders. However, the one who was in the worst condition was the woman who was being carried by her father. After not seeing her for half a month, the woman's face had become pale and bloodless. There were large scars all over her body, and her aura was extremely weak. She looked like she would not live for long. "It's you, Fairy," the man she had saved shouted in surprise. Because his leg was injured, he limped over to Fengjiu. "Fairy, I didn't expect to meet you here again. You saved me last time. I haven't thanked you yet." The man stared at the woman in red before him in excitement. Now that he had seen her again, he was certain that what he had seen that day was real. The woman before him was still dressed in a dazzling red robe, and she was still as beautiful as before. Although her eyes were cold, he felt a sense of familiarity and excitement when he met his savior again. "Fairy, thank you for saving my life last time." The man bowed solemnly to Fengjiu to express his gratitude. Fengjiu nodded. "It was nothing. This is..." The middle-aged man, carrying his daughter, came to the front and looked at Fengjiu and read. Although the woman was alone, she was extremely beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament. He could not help but be surprised. This woman was very brave. She actually dared to come here alone and was in such a dangerous place. Yet, she was still calm and collected. She was definitely not someone ordinary women could compare to. "Father, we got lost some time ago. I was chased by a demon wolf in the forest. It was this fairy who saved me." The man turned around and said excitedly, "When I came back to my senses, the fairy had already left. I didn't expect to meet you here again. It's really fate." Hearing this, the corner of Fengjiu's mouth twitched. However, she only smiled and did not say anything else. "I see." The middle-aged man came to a sudden realization. Only then did he place his daughter on his back under a tree to rest. Then, he cupped his hands and bowed to Fengjiu. "Thank you, Fairy, for saving my child. I am extremely grateful." Fengjiu nodded. Her gaze fell on the woman and said, "This lady seems to be quite sick." Hearing this, the middle-aged man's expression darkened. "This is my daughter. Her body is not good, and she has been with us for a long time. Her body cannot take it and collapsed. I know a little about medicine. If you don't mind, I could take a look at her," Fengjiu said as her gaze fell on the woman. This woman was somewhat faded with her. Now that the beast form pill's effects had worn off, it would not be a problem to treat her with acupuncture. Hearing these words, the middle-aged man and the others were stunned. There was no surprise, only hesitation and inquiry. Suddenly, a person appeared out of nowhere, claiming that he knew medicine and wanted to treat his daughter. Why did it sound a little unreliable? Although he knew that his daughter's health was not good, especially now, it did not mean that he could let his daughter be treated by a random person who came out and said that he knew medicine. After all, who knew if something more serious would happen? As a doctor and an alchemist, Fengjiu could guess their feelings and understand their distrust. Since he was going to help, then he would help until the end. Chapter 32:18. Can you be at ease now? Fengjiu looked at the middle-aged man and asked. In his heart, he thought that it was rare for her to be so kind as to want to save someone. However, he didn't expect that she would have to show her badge before the other party would believe in her medical skills. If it wasn't for their previous relationship, she probably wouldn't have bothered with him. After all, as the ghost doctor, she had her own pride. Mainly, it was very rare for her to open her mouth to treat someone. When they saw the badge, several people couldn't help but widen their eyes in shock. They looked at the young woman in front of them in disbelief, especially the middle-aged man, who was extremely emotional. His eyes were red. It was this Chung who didn't recognize Mount Tai. I was rude. The middle-aged man repeatedly apologized to Fengjiu while bowing deeply to Fengjiu. Thank you for your trouble. Fengjiu nodded slightly and went to the woman to take her pulse. Perhaps, because of the touch, the woman woke up from her deep sleep. She looked at the woman in red in a daze. She didn't know why, but the moment she opened her eyes, she actually saw the woman in red in front of her as the beautiful red little beast. "Who are you?" the woman asked, a pair of listless eyes staring at Fengjiu. Fengjiu smiled slightly. "You can call me the ghost doctor." "Ghost doctor? You're a doctor?" The woman looked at her. Seeing the smile on her lips, it made that beautiful face even more moving. She couldn't help but praise from the bottom of her heart. "You're really beautiful." Fengjiu smiled and said, "I'll help you with the acupuncture. Try to relax your body as much as possible." "Thank you, but my illness is not easy to cure. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you," the woman said, still looking at the beautiful woman in front of her. She felt that the woman's beauty was so moving and pleasing to the eye. Even her mood couldn't help but improve. Fengjiu didn't say much. He just took out the silver needles and started to treat the woman. It was unknown if the woman was too tired or if her body couldn't take it, but she gradually closed her eyes and fell asleep. The few people at the side watched with their hearts in their mouths. They were nervous and apprehensive, especially when they saw the woman in red take out the silver needles one by one and insert them without thinking. That kind of casual and that kind of technique made their foreheads break out in a cold sweat. However, when they thought of the badge, everyone comforted themselves. "It's okay, it's okay. The other party have that kind of badge. Their worries can be said to be superfluous." About an hour later, Fengjiu put away the silver needles. At the same time, he took out a pill and fed it to the woman. Finally, he sent a trace of the life force of the green lotus into her body. Finally, he stood up. "It's done." She put everything away and looked at them. Especially the middle-aged man. He looked at Fengjiu in a daze. His lips trembled. "Ghost doctor, this is okay." What do you mean?" Looking at the middle-aged man's nervous expression, Fengjiu smiled. "Your daughter is fine now. You don't have to stay here for too long. Take her back and recuperate for a while. Her body will naturally recover. As for the illness on her body, it's fine now." Chapter 32:19. Of course it's true. Fengjiu smiled. Just as she was about to speak, a whirlpool suddenly appeared in the air, and she was sucked into the whirlpool. The ghost doctor. When the middle-aged man and the other saw this, they rushed forward and tried to pull her back, but they were repelled by a force. Fengjiu, who was sucked into the vortex, shouted at them, "It's okay. I'm going to leave here." As soon as she said that, the whirlpool gradually merged and disappeared into the air. Fengjiu also disappeared, leaving the stunned Chung family members standing there, unable to regain their senses for a long time. After a long while, an old man took a deep breath and said, "Family head, we have met a hidden expert. This ghost doctor's strength is not ordinary. Moreover, the whirlpool teleportation array that appeared in the void is not something that can be opened by ordinary people. Young Miss is really fortunate this time to have met the ghost doctor on this trip. Thinking about it, her illness should not be a problem anymore." Hearing that, the middle-aged man sighed and slowly nodded. "That's right. Meeting the ghost doctor is indeed our fortune." He turned his head to look at his unconscious daughter and went forward to check on her. Seeing that her breathing was stabilizing, he could not help but feel relieved. "Her condition is much better than before," the middle-aged man said as he helped his daughter up. At this moment, the woman who was still unconscious slowly opened her eyes. "Father, you're awake? Are you feeling better?" the middle-aged man asked, looking at her with a face full of concern. "Father, I just had a dream. In the dream, that beautiful red little beast turned into a fairy and came to save me. It even talked to me," the girl said in a daze. Looking at the stunned people around her, she was a little confused. "What's wrong with all of you?" "I'm telling the truth. I just dreamt of a very beautiful fairy. I don't know why, but I felt that she was very similar to the little beast." Hearing that, everyone looked at each other and shook their heads in unison. That was a fairy with superb medical skills, a fairy called the Ghost Doctor. How could it be that little red beast? Moreover, They were still able to differentiate between humans and beasts. The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Just now, we met a woman called Ghost Doctor. She helped you with acupuncture treatment and even gave you a pill to eat. I just help you check your body's aura is better than before. It seems that your illness is really going to be cured. Also, that ghost doctor is dressed in red, but she's definitely not the little red beast we met half a month ago." He smiled and patted her shoulder. "All right, we should go back. This place is dangerous, and we shouldn't stay here for long. Especially now that your body has recovered, there's no need for you to stay here." Thus, the group of people discussed and left. On the other side, after being sucked into the whirlpool, Fengjiu returned to the back mountain of Danwang Valley. She turned around and steadied herself. Looking at the old man who was sitting at the side, her eyes flashed slightly. Only then did she walk up to him. "Master, you're back." Danwang stroked his beard and looked at her. He asked with a smile, "How have you been in the past 2 weeks?" Chapter 32:20. Ha 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 ha. As long as it's interesting. You don't need to thank me. This is what I should do. Danwang laughed loudly. He looked at Fengjiu and said, "Since you're back, don't waste time. Go and refine the beast form pill. There's still a 3-day deadline. If you can't refine the beast form pill in 3 days, then..." He didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. "Yes, your disciple will not disappoint you." As she spoke, she fixed her gaze on the Pill King. Seeing this, Danwang nodded. "All right, then I'll come back in 3 days. I hope you won't disappoint me," he said as he turned around to leave. At this time, he heard Fengjiu's voice. "Master, wait." Danwang stopped and looked back. He raised his white eyebrows and asked, "Is there something else? I don't know how long I'll have to stay here to cultivate. So, I want to find a time to send my subordinates away," she said as she looked at him. "No rush, no rush. Your subordinates are too weak. Just stay here for a while." His voice paused, and a smile appeared on his face. He glanced at Fengjiu with narrowed eyes and said, "Moreover, in the half a month that you weren't here, Master had people help you train them. Even if you want to see them now, you probably won't be able to. Wait for a while. I'll let you see them after a while. At that time, if you want them to leave first, I'll send them away. You don't need to worry about them. You should worry about yourself first. If you can't refine the beast form pill in 3 days, he smiled and left without saying anything else. Seeing him leave, Fengjiu looked at the cauldron on the side, and her eyes moved. She didn't refine the pill right away. Instead, she went to prepare the ingredients for the beast form pill. When night fell, she began to refine the beast form pill. When she was in the demonic beast forest, she would repeatedly think about which step was wrong. Why couldn't he refine the beast form pill? With her current strength, 7th level medicinal pills were not difficult, but it was difficult to obtain. Every type of medicinal pill was refined differently, and everyone's refining method was also different. Especially 7th level medicinal pills. If there was a mistake in one step, then there would be a mistake in the following steps. And this pill furnace, how was she going to control it? That night, after countless failures, she gradually gained some insight. Thus, on the 3rd day, when the sky gradually brightened and 3 bolts of lightning descended from the sky, she smiled. The 7th rank beast form pill has finally been refined. She watched as the 3 bolts of heavenly lightning struck the pill furnace. Streaks of spiritual power were refined and returned to the pill furnace. When she stepped forward to take out the pills inside, Danwang also arrived. I heard the sound of pill lightning from afar. Not bad. Danwang slowly walked over with an old man following behind him. As for the other alchemists in Danwang's valley, although they heard the sound of pill lightning, they only found out that it was Fengjiu who refined the pill and didn't ask about it. Chapter 32:21. At the back of the mountain, Fengjiu placed the pills on a small jade plate and walked towards Danwang. "Master, please take a look." When Danwang saw the 2 pills on the jade plate in her hand, a trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. He smiled and nodded. "Not bad. Your first pill is already a top-grade pill. You are indeed talented." When the old man next to him heard this, he also took a step forward to take a look. He was also secretly shocked. This kind of quality, this kind of smell, this kind of pill veins, it was obvious that this young Valley Master's talent in alchemy was really extraordinary. As long as Master is satisfied. She smiled and put the 2 pills into 2 small bottles. She kept one for herself and handed the other to Dan Wang. This one is for Master. Dan Wang nodded and didn't refuse. He took the pill and said, since you have refined a 7th order beast form pill, you should rest well today. I have already told the kitchen to prepare a spirit meat feast for you so that you can replenish your spiritual power and body. Come here tomorrow morning and wait. I will bring another pill recipe for you to refine. Yes, Feng Jiu responded. Then this disciple will go back to rest first. After saying this, she bowed and left first. After she left, the old man looked at Dan Wang and asked, Dan Wang, won't this give her too much pressure? She is not an ordinary person. How could she not be able to withstand this kind of pressure? Giving her more pressure will allow her to grow under pressure. This will only be good for her. Dan Wang stroked his beard and said with a smile, let's go. Let's go back and drink a few cups. Thus, the 2 of them also left, leaving only the pill furnace in the back of the mountain. Just as Dan Wang said, the kitchen had prepared a lot of food for her. There was stewed soup, spirit beast meat, and so on. After she took a bath and rested for a while, the food was sent over one after another. In the cave residence, the table was full of food. After those people left, she called out the contract beasts in the space and let them eat together. Tun Yun, who had been waiting here for more than 10 days, told her what had happened after she left. Master, Du Fan and the others are taken away by people arranged by Dan Wang a few days after you left. I wanted to go with them, but they didn't let me, so I could only wait here for you to come back. As for what happened to them, I don't know now. Feng Jiu already knew about this, so she said, it should be fine. Don't worry, maybe they will come back after a while. Dan King said that he wanted to increase their strength. She thought that it was probably true, but she didn't know what he would do. It seemed that they could only wait for Du Fan and the others to return before they would know if their strength had really increased. Master, are we not going to leave? Are we going to stay here forever? Lao Bai asked. After all, they had been here for more than half a month. Although my master's behavior is a bit strange, I can't deny that he is indeed very capable. Since I'm already here, I'll stay here to cultivate and improve myself. She paused and said, when Du Fan and the others come back, I will let them go back first so that they can take care of the residents. Otherwise, I will be worried. Chapter 32:22. She was a little surprised. After eating her fill, she let the little beasts return to the space. Then, she asked the people outside to pack up and leave. Then, she checked the communication jade tablets. Lung Hua's transmission jade tablet only said that everything was fine in the mansion recently. Mo Zhe was also cultivating in seclusion. However, was also very obedient, and she didn't need to worry. There was also Wanyan Shursan's communication jade tablet. His voice came from it, saying that he was wandering around and encountered some interesting things. The last one was Wanyan Qianhua's communication jade tablet. When she heard Wanyan Qianhua's confused and lonely voice, she couldn't help but be surprised. Sword Master Xiao Yao? Her sister actually fell in love with Sword Master Xiao Yao? But Sword Master Xiao Yao seemed indifferent and even wanted to drive her away. She had only heard of Sword Master Xiao Yao, and it was only after Wanyan Qianhua was saved by him that she heard of him. Therefore, when she heard that her sister actually fell in love with Sword Master Xiao Yao, she was also surprised. It was said that Sword Master Xiao Yao was already several hundred years old. Although several hundred years didn't mean anything in the world of cultivation, the two had different experiences and especially different statuses. It would be very difficult for them to be together. Moreover, the most important point was that Sword Master Xiao Yao didn't seem to be moved by her sister. Instead, it was her sister who fell in love with him first. If that was the case, then only her sister would suffer. Thinking of this, she frowned. In the communication jade tablet, Her sister asked her what she would do if she was in love with him. However, she was her. Everyone's way of doing things was different. Naturally, they couldn't be compared to each other. Therefore, she only gave her some objective advice. Since she had fallen in love with him, then she should persevere. After all, if Sword Master Xiao Yao wasn't made of stone, then he would also be moved one day. Moreover, with her sister Wanyan Qianhua's charm, she didn't believe that there wouldn't be a man who wouldn't be moved. Right now, she wasn't able to deal with the situation here. Her future was also unknown. Therefore, she planned to stay here and learn from her master for a while. Then, she would go to the Xiao Yao sect to see her sister. She also wanted to see the master of the Xiao Yao sword, Jun Jushang, who made her sister fall in love with him. That day, she tried her best to relax and rest, adjusting her state of mind. The next morning, she went out at dawn. Not long after she arrived at the back of the mountain, she saw her master. "You're early. It looks like you can't wait to know what kind of pill you're refining this time, right?" Dan Wang stroked his beard and smiled, his smiling eyes falling on Fengjiu. Hearing this, Fengjiu only smiled and asked, "Master, what pill are you refining today?" Dan Wang stroked his beard and glanced at her. "This is the pill recipe. Take it and have a look. You still have 3 days. 3 days later, I'll come back to check on the pill." Seeing him flick his sleeves and walk away, Fengjiu looked at the pill recipe in her hand. She wasn't in a hurry to refine the pill. Instead, she studied it. The more she looked at the pill recipe in her hand, the stranger she felt. Why do I feel like there's something wrong with this pill recipe? These two ingredients are conflicting. How can they be put together? She muttered doubtfully. The more she looked, the more she felt that this pill recipe was more troublesome than the beast form pill. Chapter 32:23. All right. It couldn't be said that he was tidying her up. He was just finding trouble for her. Although she felt that this pill recipe was strange, she still tried to find a way to resolve the conflicting medicinal effects. However, after 3 days, she still couldn't find a way to balance the medicinal effects. Once the 3rd day was up, her master came again. How is it?" He looked at Fengjiu with a smile, as if he was looking for trouble for her. "Master, the medicinal ingredients in this recipe are conflicting. Your disciple has tried for 3 days, but still couldn't find a way. I wonder if Master can explain a thing or two." She looked at him and asked. Dan Wang stroked his beard and looked at her, nodding. "As your master, if you encounter something you don't understand, I naturally have to give you a pointer or two." He walked forward with a smile and said, "The medicinal pill in this pill formula is actually a level 8 medicinal pill. It will be quite difficult for you. Moreover, you haven't refined a level 8 medicinal pill before, right?" Fengjiu shook her head. "No." Then that's right. Among the 8th level pills, many of the spiritual herbs in the recipe have conflicting medicinal properties. If you want to refine them, you have to find a balance between these medicinal properties. Only by resolving the conflicting medicinal properties of the spiritual herbs will you have a 50% chance of refining an 8th level pill. As for the remaining 50%, it will depend on your control of the flame and your familiarity with the spiritual herbs. He came to the table with the spiritual herbs and picked up 2 of the spiritual herbs. Look at these 2 spiritual herbs. They have conflicting properties. If you want to add them into the medicine, you have to start from these 2 spiritual herbs. Or think about whether there are other spiritual herbs that can alleviate the conflicting properties of these 2 spiritual herbs and merge them into one. Hearing this, Fengjiu was slightly stunned. Could something like this happen in an 8th level pill recipe? Thinking of this, her expression couldn't help but become serious. If that was the case, then this was really a difficult problem in refining pills. Dan Wang glanced at her and said, "You'll have to figure out the details yourself. If I tell you directly, it won't be the same as if you figure it out yourself." He paused for a moment and stared at Fengjiu with a smile. "However, I'm not here to tell you this today." Fengjiu looked at him and asked, "Master, where do you want to send me to train?" She found that this old man especially liked to use the teleportation array to send her to other places to gain experience. She didn't know what was so strange about it. Ha ha, it's good that you know. Master is doing this for your own good. As he spoke, he drew a formation on the ground. When the transportation formation was completed, he looked at her and said meaningfully, "Last time, I sent you to a dangerous place. This time, I'll send you to another place." Another place? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows. Another deep forest? Hee hee. Little girl, do you think that there are only a few continents in this world? Do you think that training can only be done in the deep forest? He stroked his beard and smiled mysteriously. Hearing this, Fengjiu's eyes flashed. Master might not know, but I came from the lower realm and have been to many places. Chapter 32:24. Fengjiu was slightly startled. 100 seriously ill people? Is this the punishment for this trial? That's right. Master knows that your medical skills are not bad, so you don't need to treat most of the minor illnesses. You can only choose to treat those who are seriously ill, and these people cannot be unpardonable evildoers, nor can they be people who harm the common people. You can't search for them. You can only meet them and save those who are fated. Once you've treated 100 people, Master will naturally bring you back. Hearing this, Fengjiu's expression could not help but reveal a trace of strangeness. You're not by my side. How do you know everything about me? Hee hee, you don't need to care about this. With a flick of his sleeve, he pushed her into the array, and at the same time, a talisman formed from spiritual energy was flicked towards her. Following the activation of the array, a light flashed, and Fengjiu also disappeared from the array. When Fengjiu fell out of a black hole, she felt that something was wrong. She tried to stabilize her body, but she still could not stand firm and directly fell to the ground. Hiss! She groaned, and when she looked down, she could not help but be startled. What's going on? It's fine if my strength is suppressed to the foundation establishment stage. But why is this? Looking down at herself, she was wearing a set of tattered clothes, and not only was her original red clothes gone, even her black hair was messy and scattered, and there was a layer of dark green bark-like thing on her hands. As if there was something growing on her skin, it was very disgusting. Looking down, her gaze fell on her left leg, and her left leg was unexpectedly weak and out of control. After being startled, she stabilized her state of mind and stood up with the help of a big tree beside her. She tried to use both of her legs to step on the ground, and sure enough, her left leg was not under any force. This old man wants to play me to death, right? How did he make me look like this? When did he do something? She took a deep breath and was somewhat in disbelief. No wonder he said that it was enough for her to treat 100 people, so he made her look like this. With her current appearance, who would believe that she knew medicine? Who would dare to let her treat them? She checked her pulse and found that there was nothing wrong with her body. However, her left leg was weak and she had to limp when she wanted to walk. She tugged at the clothes on her body, wanted to take them off and change. Who knew that the old clothes on her body couldn't be taken off? This made her clench her teeth. This old man, does he want her to wear these clothes and stay here without bathing for 10 days to half a month? She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. Then she walked into the forest and chopped a tree branch to use as a walking stick. She supported herself with it as she limped along the path. The sun above her head wasn't small. Along the way, only the trees on the side of the road could block half of the sunlight. After walking for a while, she took out some water from her space and drank a few mouthfuls before continuing to walk forward, until she came to a town in front of her. Just as she was about to limp into the town, she was stopped by the guards. Where did this beggar come from? Walk, walk, walk. Beggars can't enter the city. Leave quickly. Chapter 32:25. Hiss. Her left leg was weak, and the other party was a mystic, so the force was not light. Caught off guard, she was pushed to the ground. Her palms scratched the sand on the ground, and a trace of blood seeped out. Go, go, go. Hurry up and leave. The city guard shouted sternly, almost going forward to kick her. Fengjiu stood up with the help of her walking stick. She glanced at the two city guards and said, "I'm not a beggar." The city guard sized up the person in front of him. He was wearing tattered clothes and was using a tree branch as a walking stick. His face was covered in soot, and he couldn't see clearly. Coupled with his messy hair, he looked like a beggar no matter how he looked at him. "Hurry up and leave." The city guard waved his hand to chase her away, refusing to let her in. When Fengjiu saw this, she took out a badge from her space. "Look carefully. I'm a doctor, not a beggar." Seeing the badge, the two city guards were stunned. "You're a doctor?" They sized up Fengjiu in disbelief. "You didn't steal this badge, did you?" The corner of Fengjiu's mouth twitched. She glanced at the two and said, "Is a doctor's badge so easy to steal? Why don't you steal one for me to see?" Seeing this, the two city guards looked at each other, walked to the side, and muttered a few words. Finally, they gestured. "Go in. But with your current state, you probably won't have a place to stay even if you go in." As the two city guards spoke, they ignored Fengjiu and walked back to the city gate to stand guard, watching the people entering and leaving. Fengjiu put away the badge and limped inside. When she looked inside, she saw that most of the people inside were mystic. There were no spirit cultivators. She walked to a small stall. Before she could get close, she saw someone reaching out to push her. This time, she dodged to the side and looked at the person. "What are you doing?" Fengjiu looked at the man and frowned. "You beggar, who allowed you to enter the city? Why are you approaching my stall? Are you trying to hinder my business? Go, go, go. Get out of here. Why don't you take a look at yourself first?" Fengjiu glanced at the man indifferently. He didn't waste his breath on him and continued walking forward. However, regardless of whether she approached the stalls or the inns, she was chased away before she could even get close. She had been wandering around here for the whole day. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, she still hadn't found a place to stay. She thought for a moment. Since she couldn't find a place to stay, she would probably have to sleep outside tonight. However, just as she was about to leave, she saw an old woman being chased out of a pharmacy. Due to the force of the push, the old woman fell to the ground. The skin on her head was broken and blood seeped out. However, she did not pay attention to the injury on her forehead. Instead, she crawled up and cried as she begged. "Dr. Liu, please come with me to see my son. He really can't hold on any longer. I beg you, I beg you." The old woman kowtowed as she cried and begged. However, there were many people around, but they only discussed and watched coldly. The people in the medicine shop didn't even show their faces. Obviously, but didn't want to bother. Chapter 32:26. Fengjiu stood not far away and watched, listening to the discussions of the people around. She watched the old woman beg bitterly, but the people in the medicine shop remained indifferent. She watched as the sky gradually darkened and the surrounding people dispersed, leaving only the old woman crying and begging. At this time, she supported herself with her walking stick and walked forward. "What illness does your son have?" Fengjiu asked, looking at the sorrowful and desperate old woman. When the old woman heard the voice, she raised her head and saw a person who looked like a beggar. She wiped her tears. Her voice was hoarse and weak, and her eyes were filled with despair and death. "I don't know what illness it is. Even the doctors can't find it. No one is willing to save him. No one is willing to help us." At this moment, she was already thinking that if her son died, she would die with him. Anyway, if her family died, there was no point for an old woman like her to live. "I can save him. Take me to see him," Fengjiu said, reaching out to help the old woman up. Perhaps it was because she had reached the point of despair. Hearing this, the old woman's eyes lit up. "You can save my son? Are you a doctor?" No, you must be an immortal with great ability. You must be a hidden immortal." As if to comfort herself, as if to give herself a last bit of hope, she did not doubt Fengjiu's identity and ability. On the contrary, she saw her as a hidden doctor, an immortal who could save her son. Just like this, she brought Fengjiu home. After Fengjiu left with the old woman, a middle-aged man walked out of the medicine shop, shook his head, looked in the direction they left, and sighed. "Who can save someone who is about to die?" The waiter in the shop also walked out, looked at the people in the distance, and said with a smile, "Dr. Liu, that beggar actually said that she can save him. She probably wants a place to stay." Who in this city doesn't know that Dr. Lu's medical skills are the best? Even you can't save someone. How can a beggar save him? On the other side, Fengjiu followed the old woman home. She saw that it was a simple courtyard with many things piled up in the courtyard. There were a few rooms in the courtyard, and the old woman brought her into one of the rooms to the person lying on the bed. "He is my son. Immortal, quickly take a look at my son. You must save my son. He is a filial child. If he dies, I have no reason to live." The old woman cried, her voice sorrowful and helpless. It was the despair of an old mother. The despair of asking for help made her want to die. Fengjiu comforted her. "Don't worry, I'll take a look at him first. Help me bring a basin of water over here." "Okay," the old woman replied, wiping her tears shed, and walked out of the room. Fengjiu first glanced at the person on the bed and saw that it was a man in his 30s with a strong physique. However, he was now so thin that he didn't even look human. Moreover, he was unconscious and his breathing was extremely weak. After feeling his pulse, she was slightly surprised and withdrew her hand. The old woman also came in with the basin of water, so she washed her hand in the water and asked, "Did he become like this after he went out on a mission?" Chapter 32:27. They sent him back and didn't come back after leaving behind some money. "I've looked everywhere for medical help, but they all said there was no way." The woman cried and looked at Fengjiu. "Immortal, you have a way to save my son, right? You must have a way, right?" Fengjiu glanced at her and nodded. "Don't worry, your son won't die." Hearing this, the old woman cried with joy. "I knew it. I knew my son wouldn't die. I knew it. I knew it. He probably has wounds on his body that haven't been treated properly. Help me take off his clothes and check." Fengjiu gestured as he retreated to the side. Okay. As the old woman spoke, she stepped forward to help. Not long after, her son's clothes were taken off, leaving only his underwear. Fengjiu stepped forward to take a look. Her gaze fell on the man's abdomen, where a red line of blood extended upwards towards his heart. She had the old woman turn her son over. After checking, she finally found a wound at the back of his waist. The wound was only a red dot the size of a toothpick. It wasn't torn, and there were no other marks. If one didn't look closely, they would think it was just a red mole. Turn him over and let him lie on his stomach. Fengjiu gestured. As he taught the old woman what to do, he took out silver needles and laid them out beside the bed. Seeing those silver needles, the old woman's heart skipped a beat. At this moment, she was nervous and worried. Those long silver needles were going to pierce into her son's body. If they pierced into the wrong place, would it? Thinking of this, she was about to speak when she saw that one of the silver needles had already pierced in her son. She could only suppress her anxiety. She didn't expect to hear the immortal's words at this moment. He was stung by a poisonous flower. First, he fell into a coma. Then his body heated up. Then, his breathing became chaotic, occasionally accompanied by convulsions. This situation has already been like this for 2 to 3 months, right? He's already in the late stage. If he hadn't met me today, your son probably wouldn't have lived for more than 3 days. Fengjiu's voice drifted out. Hearing this, the old woman was stunned. Her eyes filled with joy. She didn't tell the immortal about this, but he actually knew. It seemed that her son could really be saved. As time passed, Fengjiu finished performing acupuncture on the man on the bed. He put away the silver needles and took out a pill from the space and stuffed it into the man's mouth. He also poured some spirit liquid into the man's mouth. After cleaning his hands, he walked to the side and sat down. "Immortal, how is my son?" The old woman watched the entire process. Perhaps it was because she saw the scene of Fengjiu saving her son, so her originally lifeless eyes had now regained their former vitality. Even her entire person looked much more energetic. "He should be fine after a few more acupuncture treatments," said Wang Yao. Hearing this, the old woman beamed with joy. That's great. Immortal, please sit down and rest for a while, or you can rest in a room next door. I'll go cook now. I must thank you properly, Immortal. Thank you for saving my son." Chapter 32:28. The old woman was very grateful. Although the family did not have much money left because of the medical treatment, she still caught an old hen from her backyard and made a stew. She also cooked a few dishes for Fengjiu. Fengjiu used this time to clean herself up in the next room. At least, even if she could not change the others, she had to clean herself up. Immortal, it's time to eat. The old woman placed the dishes on the table and called out to Fengjiu. Coming. Not long after, Fengjiu pushed open the door and walked out. Although she was still wearing the same tattered clothes and was still limping, her ink-black hair had been tied up, and her beautiful face was revealed after she had washed up. Seeing Fengjiu's face, the old woman was even more convinced that she was an immortal who had come to save her son. If it was an ordinary person, how could they have such a beautiful face? Fengjiu held her walking stick and sat down at the table. She said to the old woman, "No need to call me immortal, just call me Ghost Doctor." "Yes, yes," the old woman replied and gave her more food. Fengjiu saw that there was only one bowl and said, "Elder, sit down and eat with me." Sit down and eat with me. I still have some things to discuss with you." "All right," the old woman replied. She first went to the kitchen to get a bowl and a pair of chopsticks and sat down to eat. Fengjiu briefly explained her son's situation to the old woman at the table. When they finished eating, she put down the bowl and chopsticks and said, "At most tomorrow morning. He will wake up tomorrow morning, but his body will need some time to slowly recover." Hearing Fengjiu's words, the old woman thanked Fengjiu gratefully. After all, a person who had been said by many doctors to have no chance of surviving was now said to wake up tomorrow and recover after a period of rest. How could she not be excited? That was her son. Her son had finally overcome this calamity. This was great. "Elder, what is this place? Why is it that most of the people in the city are mystic cultivators and not a single spirit cultivator?" Fengjiu asked the question in his heart, and his gaze landed on the old woman. Hearing this, the old woman seemed a little strange. "Ghost Doctor, where is this place?" She looked at Fengjiu and saw that she shook her head. Her expression did not seem to be fake. She then said, "Ghost Doctor must be an expert in seclusion. That's why you don't know. We're in the Black Tortoise Continent, one of the divisions of the upper realm. Other than the mortals who can't cultivate, there are some mystics who can cultivate Black Tortoise techniques. As for the spirit cultivators that Ghost Doctor mentioned, this old lady only knows that in those big cities, those spiritual medicine masters are spirit cultivators. I've never heard of anything else." As the old lady spoke, she looked at Fengjiu and said, "I think the Ghost Doctor should also be a spirit apothecary, right? Only a spirit alchemist can possess such miraculous and powerful healing abilities. My son is truly fortunate to have met a spirit alchemist like the Ghost Doctor." Fengjiu smiled, but he was surprised. One of the divisions of the upper realm? In other words, this place was still the upper realm, but in a different area? Sure enough, the upper realm was vast and beyond the imagination of ordinary people. The old man was really capable. He actually sent her here with a teleportation array. It was indeed not simple. Chapter 32:29. Ghost Doctor, my son is awake, he's awake." The old woman's voice sounded in the courtyard in surprise. Fengjiu, who was in the room, also came out after washing up. "I'll go and have a look." As she spoke, she limped towards a room next door. The man on the bed had already woken up. Seeing Fengjiu come in, he struggled to get up, but Fengjiu gestured for him to lie down. "Your body is still weak, lie down," Fengjiu said as she sat down on the chair beside the bed. When a man on the bed saw Fengjiu's face, he was a little surprised, as if he didn't expect such a young woman. Moreover, this woman had a peerless beauty, but she was wearing shabby clothes and was limping. It was really strange. I heard from my mother that it was the Ghost Doctor who saved me. Yuan, will first thank the Ghost Doctor for saving my life. When my body recovers, I will definitely repay you," he said as he lay on the bed. Because his body was still weak, his words were weak. Fengjiu nodded. "Since you're awake, I'll give you another acupuncture treatment. After today, I'll give you another acupuncture treatment tomorrow." You'll only need to recuperate. I'll have to trouble the ghost doctor," Ewan said as he saw his mother step forward and take off his clothes. In front of such a young woman, he couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed, but when he saw that the ghost doctor's expression was the same as before, there was no change in her expression, he gradually relaxed. Because her son's condition had improved, the old woman was finally relieved. After busying herself with the matters at home, she took a basket of vegetables and went out to buy groceries. She bought a big basket of fish and meat, as well as a few fruits. Some of the people in the city who were familiar with her were a little surprised. "Auntie, you seem to be in a good mood today? Is your family's Anne's condition better?" a man asked. Looking at the old woman's smiling face, he was very surprised. During this period of time, he saw her frowning and her eyes red. It was rare to see her smile, so why was it that today? "That's right, my family's met a benefactor. He's fine now." The old woman chuckled and said, "I bought a lot of things to nourish my Ewan's body." Seeing the old woman leave with light footsteps, many people began to talk behind her. Once the news spread, Dr. Liu of the medicine shop also heard about it. This was because some people were saying that Dr. Liu's medical skills were not good enough, and that the person that he could not save had been saved by someone else. Therefore, when Dr. Liu heard the news, he was also surprised and personally went to Anne's house to see what was going on. When he arrived, the old woman was preparing lunch, and Fengjiu was in the room studying her suddenly powerless left leg. To his surprise, he discovered that there was a red mark of a talisman on her left leg. Did this old man use a talisman? She was astonished. She took out a book about talismans and started to read it. In her space, there were many books about this kind of thing. In the past, she had even learned the talisman clone technique. However, she didn't expect that her cheat master would also know the talisman clone technique. Moreover, he had used the talisman clone technique on her when she wasn't paying attention. As she flipped through the rune books in her room, she could faintly hear voices coming from outside. "Auntie Yu, I heard that Yuan's illness has improved. Is this true?" Dr. Liu asked as soon as he entered the room. Chapter 32:30. After entering and seeing Yuan, Dr. Liu's heart was filled with shock. A person who was originally determined to die was now gradually recovering his vitality. This was too inconceivable. Outside the door, Dr. Liu pulled the old woman to the side and asked, "Which expert cured Yuan? Is she still here?" He looked around the courtyard, and finally his gaze fell on the tightly shut door of a room. "This?" The old woman hesitated and said, "Yes, she is. She is called the Ghost Doctor and is still living at home. I want to see this expert. Auntie Yu, please go and tell her." Dr. Liu said as his eyes stared at the closed room. The old woman hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then, Dr. Liu, please wait a moment. I will go and ask." After all, they were in the same city, and she often had to ask him for help. Coupled with his connections in the city, she couldn't refuse directly. "Ghost Doctor, can I come in?" She knocked on the door and called out. "Come in," Fengjiu said from inside the room and put away the book in his hand. The door opened, and the old woman walked in and closed the door. "Ghost Doctor, Dr. Liu is here. He is the doctor from the pharmacy. He can be considered a reputable person in this city. Since he came personally today, I can't drive him out." The old woman said softly and looked at Fengjiu. "He said he wants to see you." "I wonder." Hearing this, Fengjiu said lightly, "Let him go back. I won't see him." "Okay." The old woman responded and went outside. Closing the door, she said to Dr. Liu, who was waiting in the courtyard, "The ghost doctor said she won't see him. Dr. Liu, you see okay?" Dr. Liu didn't insist and said, "Yuan's body is indeed getting better. Since that's the case, I will go back first." After saying that, he turned and left. After leaving the door, he looked back at the small courtyard, and his eyes flashed slightly. Ghost doctor? A doctor with good medical skills? The other party's skills were above his. No wonder he didn't want to see him. However, the more it was like this, the more curious he was about what kind of person this person was. Fengjiu did not take Dr. Liu seriously. Therefore, after he left, she continued to read the book. She planned to break the talisman on her left leg first. However, at the same time, she asked the old woman to help her inquire about something. That was to find out if there was anyone in the city who was seriously ill and what kind of character the ill spoke and behaved. This was not a difficult task for the old lady. After all, when she went out to buy groceries, she would chat with some acquaintances and talk about what was new in the city, as well as some gossip. When the old lady saw that it was Feng Jiu's order, she tried her best to inquire about it. After all, he had saved her son without charging a single cent. Therefore, after she helped Yuan with the third acupuncture, she heard the old woman mention that there was someone seriously ill in the city and that it was a good family. She made up her mind to go and take a look. However, when he thought of this, he couldn't help but feel that the tables had turned. In the past, it was always people who came to her for medical treatment. Now, she was the one who went to look for someone. It was really unexpected. Now that Yuan is fine, it's time for me to leave. After Feng Jiu bid farewell to the old woman, she left behind some money for her. You can keep this money. It can help you in recover. Chapter 32-31. It's all right. I've disturbed you for the past few days. Moreover, I know that you don't have much money on hand. Yuan's body is still weak, so there are many places where he needs money. Just accept this. Take it as a reward for helping me gather information for the past 2 days. Feng Jiu smiled and stuffed the money into the old woman's hands. After staying here for 3 days, the old woman had killed 3 old hens in the backyard. This bit of money was nothing to her, but it could help her and her son. Holding the purse in her hand, the old woman's eyes couldn't help but redden. She looked at Feng Jiu and asked, "Ghost Doctor, are you going to the Qin family? I heard that second young Master Qin's illness was treated by doctors from other places, but it was useless. Moreover, the Qin family is very powerful. Although they are a benevolent family, if something happens, I'm afraid that they won't let it go easily." "Yes, I know." She smiled and nodded. "I'll leave first, don't worry. I have my own plans." After bidding farewell to the Yu family, Feng Jiu supported herself with her crutches and left. She asked around for the Qin family's location and walked along the road. However, after walking for a while, she heard incessant cries and screams in front of her. She couldn't help but pull one of them and ask, "What's going on in front?" A man turned around and saw that it was a beautiful woman. His expression softened, and he glanced strangely at her nondescript appearance and the crutches in her hand. He said, "It seems that a pregnant woman in front was bumped into by someone. The situation is not good." Hearing this, Feng Jiu frowned slightly and walked forward. When she came to the front, she saw that the woman had been carried to the clinic in front. She thought about it and followed. Seeing the woman's complexion and her belly that was so big that it looked like she was about to give birth, the situation was probably not good. Since she ran into it, she should follow and take a look. Therefore, she followed him to the clinic and watched from the outside with the other onlookers. After about half an incense stick's time, she vaguely heard someone inside saying, "Only one adult and one child can be saved. Hurry up and make a decision. Otherwise, neither of them will survive." At this time, he heard a few voices arguing. A man was shouting to save the children, and a woman was saying that she wanted to save the mother. It seemed that they were arguing inside. Look, this is the difference between the in-laws family and the maternal family. The maternal family wants to protect the mother. After all, the child can be reborn in the future. The in-laws family, on the other hand, wants to protect the younger ones. They can't bear to see their unborn offspring die. Then the man who said he would save the child is the woman's husband. That's right. He hugged his mistress in broad daylight and met his wife. He even let his mistress push his wife down. Now, he even said that he wanted to save the little one and abandon the big one. This man is too ruthless. That's normal. If the main wife was gone, wouldn't that benefit the mistress? What's more, men are all like this. They like the new and hate the old. What's so surprising about that? That's right. Didn't you see? The mistress is as beautiful as a fairy. Her willowy waist is so small that it can't be held in one hand. Compared to the main wife, her body is swollen and pregnant. Her waist is more than one circle round. How can they be compared? Chapter 32:32. When Fengjiu heard this, she saw that the argument was still going on inside, so she walked forward. Hey, who are you? What are you doing here? Can't you see that we're busy here? Someone stopped Fengjiu and said, trying to push her away. Fengjiu raised a branch and knocked that person's hand away. She looked inside and said, I can save both the adult and the child. When these words came out, the people who were arguing inside couldn't help but fall silent and look at her in unison. Especially the man, when he saw her, his eyes were filled with amazement. When the stout woman saw this, she hurriedly went forward. What did you say? You can save both the adult and the child? That's right, I'm a doctor. Fengjiu said and nodded slightly. Quick, as long as you can save both the child and the adult, I'll definitely thank you. Thank you very much. As the stout woman said this, she didn't mind that Fengjiu's clothes were tattered and brought her inside. Dr. Liu, this young lady said that she can save my daughter and the child. The woman said to a middle-aged man inside. This middle-aged man was Dr. Liu. When he heard this, he turned around and his eyes flashed. You're the ghost doctor? When he went back, he had people ask around and found out that a person who used a branch as a walking stick and wore tattered clothes like a beggar had followed you and his mother home. The person in front of him seemed to be that person. Fengjiu glanced at Dr. Liu and calmly replied. Hearing this, Dr. Liu's eyes lit up. I heard that the ghost doctor's medical skills are high, but I didn't think that she would be so young. Since the ghost doctor said that she has confidence, then she must have confidence. As he spoke, he said to the woman and man, You've met a benefactor today. If the ghost doctor can help, both the adult and the child should be saved. Although he had never seen her treat someone, he was the one who treated Yuan, so he naturally knew the situation. To be able to save someone who was on the brink of death and dare to call herself the ghost doctor, it could be seen that her medical skills were extraordinary. Therefore, it could be said that when she said that she could save him, he did not have the slightest doubt. Hearing this, the woman couldn't help but be overjoyed. Then I'll have to ask the ghost doctor to quickly save him. I'll repay your kindness later. The rest of you can leave first. This madam will stay. She asked the others to leave and let the stout woman stay. Ghost doctor, I wonder if I can stay and help. Actually, he wanted to see with his own eyes how the ghost doctor saved people. I'm afraid it's inconvenient. Fengjiu said faintly as his gaze fell on Dr. Liu. Dr. Liu, you can leave first. My daughter and grandson can't wait any longer, the woman said as she urged him to leave. After all, she was worried that it would affect her daughter if he delayed any longer. Seeing this, Dr. Liu turned around and walked out. In a medicine hall's cubicle, one could faintly hear the sound of people walking around and shouting for hot water. Other than the stout woman, no one outside knew what was going on inside. They only knew that as time passed, cries of pain came from inside. About an hour later, a baby was born. The cries of the baby shook the hearts of the people outside. The man couldn't help but rush in. When Dr. Liu saw this, he followed in. Chapter 32:33. The child was born less than a month ago, so his body needs to be nursed back to health. As for this madam, she also needs to recuperate. She carried the child to the stout woman and said, There isn't anything major right now. Dr. Liu, please take care of the rest. With that, she retreated to the side, and the stout woman and man squeezed forward to see the child and daughter. Thus, no one noticed Fengjiu's departure. When they came back to their senses and wanted to thank Fengjiu again, they saw that the person who was standing at the side just now had disappeared. Dr. Liu, how is my daughter? The woman handed her grandson to the son-in-law who had squeezed forward and hurriedly asked Dr. Liu. After taking her pulse, Dr. Liu withdrew his hand and took a deep breath, saying, She is indeed fine. This was already the second time. He had no way of dealing with Yuan, but he was saved by the ghost doctor. Now it was the same here. This woman's breathing was clearly very weak, and she had no strength to give birth to the child. But in the end, she still gave birth to the child and saved her life. He couldn't help but admire the other party's medical skills. On the other side, Fengjiu, who had left, walked along the road and arrived in front of the Qin family's door. Looking at the large residence in front of her and the two stone lions squatting in front of the door, she thought for a moment before walking up and knocking on the door. "Who are you looking for?" The door opened a small crack, and she was surprised to see the person outside. The person outside was dressed in tattered clothes and held a walking stick in her hand, but she had an extremely beautiful face. "I'm looking for your family head." As she spoke, she took out a badge and handed it over. "Just show this to your family head." When the gatekeeper took the badge, his hand couldn't help but tremble. He didn't have time to say anything else and hurriedly ran inside. At this moment, the atmosphere in the Qin family was gloomy and stifling. Although the Qin family was a large family in the city, the family head only married one wife. Moreover, the couple were very loving and had 2 sons and 1 daughter. Now that the 2 sons were seriously ill and helpless, the entire Qin family was shrouded in a sorrowful atmosphere. "Family head, family head." The gatekeeper's voice hurriedly came from outside, causing the housekeeper waiting in the courtyard to shout, "How rude! Don't you know where this is? How can you make a fuss? Butler, look at this." After all, the gatekeeper was relatively young. He was so excited that he lost his sense of propriety. At this time, after being yelled at by the butler, he hurriedly handed over the badge. The butler took a look at it and couldn't help but be shocked. "Hiss, where did this come from?" This was actually the badge of an alchemy saint. Not to mention that there was no alchemy saint in their city, it was extremely difficult to find an alchemy saint in other large cities. There was a strange woman outside the door. She was extremely beautiful, but she was wearing tattered clothes. She walked with a limp and held a tree branch in her hand as a crutch. After she knocked on the door, she handed this to me and said that she wanted to see the family head. The gatekeeper said excitedly, "Housekeeper, is this medicine saint very powerful? Can it save second young master?" Holding the badge, the housekeeper couldn't help but shake his hands. He quickly said, "Hurry up, invite him to the front hall, and serve him well. I'll immediately go in and inform the patriarch." Yes, the gatekeeper hurriedly went to the door and invited them in. Chapter 32-34. Hearing the steward's words and looking at the badge, Patriarch Qin's eyes shone with pleasant surprise. "Medicine saint? We have a medicine saint in our city? That's great. That's great. Madam Unger, it can be saved." Hearing this, the weeping woman was startled. "Medicine saint? Where? Where is the medicine saint?" Seeing this, the other man and girl in the room also came forward. "Madam, look." Patriarch Qin handed over the badge. "This is the medicine saint's badge. You guys stay here and take care of Hung. I'll go ahead and take a look." Saying this, he immediately strode out. At this time, Fengjiu was sitting in the front hall and drinking tea. A maidservant was waiting on her, and the maidservant would steal glances at her from time to time. After a while, when a middle-aged man walked in quickly, she also looked at him and sized him up. At the same time, Patriarch Qin was also sizing up the person sitting in the hall. When he first saw her, he was very surprised. Although he heard from the steward that she was a beautiful young woman, he was slightly startled when he saw her tattered clothes. Now that he looked at her again, he felt even more strange. Although she was wearing tattered clothes, her temperament was extraordinary, especially the other party's eyes, which were cold and had an intimidating light. He immediately collected his thoughts and strode forward, cupping his hands in greeting. "I didn't know that the medicine saint was coming. I didn't come out to greet you. I hope you won't blame me." Patriarch Qin. Fengjiu nodded slightly. She didn't stand up, but sat and looked at him. At this time, Patriarch Qin came forward with the badge in both hands. "Medicine saint, I'll return this badge." Fengjiu took the badge and put it away, saying, "I came this time because I heard that the Qin family is a kind family. I also heard that second young master Qin is seriously ill, so I came to take a look." Hearing this, Patriarch Qin was overjoyed. "Thank you, medicine saint. Thank you, medicine saint. Call me Ghost Doctor, Fengjiu said. She took a sip of tea and stood up. Take me to see second young master. Yes, yes, this way, please, Ghost Doctor. He personally led the way, bringing her to the backyard. Arriving at the rear courtyard and entering the side room, Patriarch Qin hurriedly introduced to Fengjiu. This is my wife, this is my eldest son, and this is my youngest daughter. Come, come, quickly greet the Ghost Doctor. Greetings, Ghost Doctor. The three of them couldn't help but feel strange when they saw that the person who came was so young and beautiful, but her clothes were tattered. Fengjiu nodded slightly and walked forward. He came to the side of the bed and examined the man on the bed. The man on the bed was unconscious. His face was pale and bloodless, and his eyes were sunken in. His breathing was weak, as if he would die at any moment. After the examination, Fengjiu raised his eyebrows slightly and withdrew his hand in surprise. He looked at the man on the bed and said to the people beside the bed, Second young master is not sick. Hearing this, the Qin family members were stunned, especially Mrs. Qin, who couldn't help but say, Not sick? How could he not be sick when he was already so sick? Did the Ghost Doctor make a mistake? Madam, don't be rude. Patriarch Qin was shocked and hurriedly stopped her. He said to Fengjiu, My wife was too worried and offended you with her words. Please don't take offense, Ghost Doctor. The dignified medicine saint wasn't someone who could be questioned by just anyone. Moreover, she only said that he wasn't sick and didn't say anything else. Chapter 32-35. Hearing this, Qin family head took a deep breath and said, Ghost Doctor, please explain. If he isn't sick, then what is the cause of this situation? Fengjiu looked at them and said, An evil spirit is close to the body, and it is caused by an external evil spirit entering the body. Second young master is born with meridians, and it is easy for him to attract evil spirits. Looking at his situation, he has been ill for at least 1 or 2 months. Now that he is at the final stage, if the evil spirit succeeds, second young master won't be able to live. She continued, However, if this situation was seen by any doctor, they would say that he is seriously ill. However, no matter what medicine they use, it is very difficult to treat the illness. Then what do we do? The woman was stunned. Looking at her son on the bed, she rushed forward and was about to kneel in front of Fengjiu. Ghost Doctor, I beg you, please save my son. I beg of you. Fengjiu helped her up and said, Madam, there is no need to be anxious. I am here today to save him. Ghost Doctor, is there anything we can do? Qin family head asked. He only knew that his second son had been weak and sickly since he was young, but he didn't know that he was born with meridians. Born with meridians? So many people couldn't find out, but the Ghost Doctor in front of him knew. He really didn't know where she came from. Why did she come to his Qin family to save him? It is said that the higher the rank of a doctor and alchemist, the harder it is to invite them. You are so powerful. Why did you come to my house? The young girl at the side asked the question in her heart. Her eyes were also fixed on the beautiful woman. Don't speak nonsense, Qin family head shouted, but he also wanted to know why. Why did she come to his house? Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. It is normal for you to find it strange. After all, I usually don't come to your house to treat people. However, in the end, my master asked me to come out and gain experience. He asked me to treat 100 seriously ill people, and the people I treat must not be evil people. Therefore, after asking around, I came to your house. She smiled and looked at the young girl, asking, Am I clear enough? What else do you want to ask? You can ask all at once. The young girl's face turned red, and she looked at her with some embarrassment. After thinking, she asked, Why are you wearing these clothes? Don't all girls like pretty clothes? Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. This is a treasure robe. Before I cure 100 people, this robe cannot be taken off. She paused for a moment, smiled, and continued. Perhaps my master thought that I was beautiful, so he purposely made me look like this to send me down the mountain. Seeing Fengjiu speak in a relaxed manner and smile, The Qin clan could not help but feel relieved. They felt that although she was a respected saint of medicine, her personality was extremely good, so they did not feel so restrained. "Let's get down to business," Fengjiu said with a serious expression. "What we need to do now is to force the evil yin qi out of his body. I'll give you a prescription. Quickly get the herbs and boil them into a medicinal bath for him to soak in." Hearing this, the man beside her hurriedly brought over a brush, ink, and paper and placed them on the table. After Feng Nine sat down, she wrote down the prescription with one hand. Looking at the words, and then at the calm and composed woman, his eyes flashed slightly. "I'll go get the herbs," the man said, and quickly left with the prescription. Chapter 32-36. The fire burned under the tub, and the heat rose up. The water in the tub was so hot that it was smoking. As soon as the man was placed in, his originally pale body was scalded red. Because Patriarch Qin ordered everyone to leave, only Patriarch Qin, his eldest son, the housekeeper, and 2 servants were left in the courtyard. Looking at his son who was scalded red in the tub, Patriarch Qin's heart was in his throat. If it was an ordinary wooden tub, it would have been destroyed by the fire below. However, this tub was not made of ordinary wood, and the fire below was not burning brightly. Instead, it was half-baked from a distance. Fengjiu watched from the side. After a while, he stepped on a chair and walked to the side of the tub. He helped the second young master who was sitting in the tub remove the evil yin energy from his body. After the acupuncture, the medicinal bath lasted for about 4 hours. When Fengjiu ordered people to carry the person in the tub back to his room, Patriarch Qin hurriedly ordered the servants to carry him back to his room, as if he was afraid that his son would be cooked. Fengjiu entered the room and checked again. After taking out a pill and stuffing it into his son's mouth, he asked, "Patriarch Qin, does your family have any ancient jade?" "Ancient jade?" Patriarch Qin was startled. After thinking for a while, he said, "My family's ancestors did leave behind some jade pendants, but I don't know if they can be considered ancient jade." He paused, then said, "How about this? I'll go get them for the ghost doctor to take a look." He thought that the ghost doctor wanted them. In any case, she was treating his son. If she wanted ancient jade, he could find some for her. Thus, after seeing that his son's blood and qi seemed to be better than before, he hurriedly went back to get those jade pendants and other things. In the room, only the eldest young master and Fengjiu were left. The eldest young master looked at Fengjiu, asking, "Ghost doctor, after doing this, will my second brother's body not be invaded by the evil yin energy in the future?" Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "No, this is only to help him expel the evil yin energy in his body. As for whether or not he will be invaded by the evil yin energy in the future, it will depend on whether or not your father can bring back useful ancient jade." "Why is that?" He was a little surprised. He had thought that the ancient jade was what she wanted, but now it seemed that it was not the case. Some ancient jades have the effect of repelling evil spirits. Moreover, they can prevent evil spirits from getting close to them. It has the effect of protecting the body. Fengjiu explained as he picked up his walking stick and limped to the table. He poured himself a cup of tea and drank it. Not long after, Patriarch Qin came back with a tray. There were many jade pendants and other things on it. He placed it in front of Fengjiu and said, "Ghost doctor, please take a look. Is there anything you like?" Hearing this, Fengjiu was startled. He knew that Qin Fengjiu had misunderstood. He smiled and said, "Qin Fengjiu, this ancient jade is not for me. It's for second young master." She gave him a simple explanation. Seeing his enlightened and apologetic expression, she smiled. "It's just that, although these jades are quite old, they're still not good enough. Truly good jades are warm in the winter and cool in the summer. There are also warm jades that emit warmth all year round. There are also ancient jades that are extremely spiritual. These things of yours are not suitable. They are useless." She shook her head and pushed the tray to the side. Chapter 32-37. Hearing this, Fengjiu paused and pondered. This Qin clan's second young master's meridians really couldn't be suppressed by ordinary ancient jade. There wasn't even a single spirit cultivator in this place, let alone an ancient jade with spirituality. Was she expecting too much from them? Ghost Doctor? Ghost Doctor? Patriarch Qin called out to her. Seeing that she seemed to be distracted, he couldn't help but ask worriedly, Ghost Doctor, what if we don't have the ancient jade? Fengjiu came back to her senses and looked at the anxious Patriarch Qin, saying, I do have a piece here. She took out an ancient jade from her space. Most of the treasures in her space were obtained from others, but there weren't many pieces of ancient jade that could ward off evil spirits. However, seeing that they really couldn't take out a piece of ancient jade that could be used, she thought for a moment and erased her traces of the ancient jade before handing it over to Patriarch Qin. String this jade up and let him wear it around his neck. The piece she handed over was a round 8 trigrams jade. This was the most suitable piece of jade for the Qin clan's second young master out of all the jade she had. If she hadn't heard that the Qin clan's people were all upright people, she wouldn't have taken out such a piece of jade. Receiving the jade from Fengjiu, Patriarch Qin was shocked. He could feel the warmth of the 8 trigrams jade in his hand. Moreover, there was a spiritual aura coming from the jade. It was obviously not an ordinary jade. This Ghost Doctor, this jade, he wanted to say that this jade was too precious and they didn't dare to accept it, but he couldn't say it. If he didn't accept this jade, what would happen to his son? Finally, he took the jade and solemnly bowed to Fengjiu. 1,000 words aren't enough to express my gratitude at this moment. Ghost Doctor, thank you. Fengjiu waved her hand and didn't say anything else. He had someone string the jade up and put it around second young Master Qin's neck. Then, he looked at Fengjiu and asked, Ghost Doctor, is this okay? Fengjiu replied, set up a soft bed here. I'll rest here tonight. This Patriarch Qin was a little hesitant. He glanced at his eldest son and said to Fengjiu, Ghost Doctor, I've already ordered people to prepare a room for you. Ghost Doctor is our Qin clan's great benefactor. How can you rest on a soft bed? Fengjiu smiled. Whether or not second young master can get through this ordeal depends on tonight. I'll be here to guard him. If Patriarch Qin feels apologetic, you can send someone to prepare some food for me. Hearing this, the eldest young master of the Qin family immediately said, Since that's the case, I'll get the kitchen to prepare. The Ghost Doctor can rest here for the time being. Saying this, he bowed and left first. Everyone in the room retreated, leaving only a soft bed for Fengjiu to rest on. While she was resting, the people in the kitchen prepared a sumptuous meal to entertain Fengjiu. At the same time, because of the words of some elders in the clan, Patriarch Qin secretly sent people to the city to inquire about Fengjiu's origins. At the same time, because he received her ancient jade, he was discussing with some elders in the clan to compensate her with something. Chapter 32-38. Are you talking about medicine or something like that? Patriarch Qin looked at one of the elders and hesitated before saying, I'm afraid that we can't take out any rare medicine. I think that the Ghost Doctor isn't an ordinary person. I'm afraid that she won't be interested in our things. In my opinion, it's more convenient to give crystal stones. One of the elders said and looked at the others. What do you all think? That's a good idea. But isn't this too direct? How can it be? No matter where it is, money and crystal stones are the most common. I think it's best to give this. Thus, the few of them discussed and finally decided to prepare some crystal stones for Fengjiu. Firstly, it could be used to pay for the treatment, and secondly, it could be used as a return gift. In the room in the backyard, the kitchen staff sent the dishes to Fengjiu's courtyard. When Fengjiu, who was originally resting in the room, heard the noise outside, she came out of her room and sat down at the stone table in the courtyard, eating her dinner unhurriedly. Patriarch Qin and eldest young Master Qin accompanied her in the courtyard. When she was full, Patriarch Qin asked, Ghost Doctor, are these dishes to your taste? And they're all good. Fengjiu replied, wiping the corners of her mouth as she stood up. I'm going back to my room. You all should go back and rest too. Patriarch Sheen saw that she was going to leave and swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. He only signaled the servants to clean up the table and left with his eldest son. Not long after they left, the people who were sent to inquire also returned. Patriarch, this subordinate, has asked around in the city and found out that the ghost doctor only arrived in our city a few days ago. However, after she arrived in the city, she's saved. The secret guard reported the information he had gathered to the Patriarch on the main seat. After Patriarch Sheen heard the secret guard's words, he was secretly shocked, but at the same time, he also knew that if the ghost doctor could save those two people, she must be able to cure his son. However, there was also a trace of surprise in his heart. No one actually knew where the ghost doctor came from. It was as if she appeared out of thin air, but had such shocking abilities. It was really strange. That night, no one in the Qin clan could sleep peacefully, especially the Qin clan master and Madame Qin. Patriarch Qin, who was standing by the window with his coat on, sighed softly and turned back. He paced back and forth in the room, restless. The ghost doctor had said that it would depend on whether or not hung air could make it through the night. It probably wouldn't be that simple. Could it be that something evil would come tonight? Thinking of this, he had the urge to go to the courtyard to see what was going on, but thinking of the ghost doctor's instructions, he could only give up in the end. Even so, his heart was still concerned about the situation over there. Master, do we need to go and take a look at Hong-er? With only the ghost doctor standing guard there, my heart is in a mess. I'm very worried. Tell me, if something happens, the ghost doctor is only a woman. How can she handle it? Madame Qin didn't even take off her coat. She paced back and forth in the room, looking outside from time to time. She had made up her mind that if there was any movement in the courtyard, she would rush over to take a look immediately. However, she was still quite a distance away, so she couldn't see the situation in the courtyard. She felt very uneasy. Chapter 32-39. On the other side of the courtyard, Feng Jiu was resting on a soft couch in the room. As the night deepened, the outside was completely silent. Not a single sound could be heard. There was no light in the room, and it was pitch black. Hence, Feng Jiu was lying on the soft couch. If one did not pay attention, it would be difficult to notice that there was another person there. After midnight, the rustling sound of leaves rustling in the wind could be heard from outside. There was also a faint sound of the wind patting on the door and windows. The night breeze blew in through the cracks in the door and the half-open windows. It was icy cold and seeped into one's skin, causing one to shiver involuntarily. The room was completely silent. Feng Jiu, who was lying on the soft couch, had already opened his eyes. His pair of clear eyes quietly looked into the pitch-black room. She retracted her aura and silently blended into the room. Only when she saw a few faintly discernible figures fighting to be the first to enter the room did she narrow her eyes and stare at the few phantoms in front of her. This brat's body is about to die. Let me use this body. No, we've already agreed that this is mine. How can that be? This kid looks like he's about to die. I should be the one who put in the most effort. This body of his is naturally the most suitable for me to use. I'll do it. One of the phantoms said and pounced forward. However, when the transparent figure pounced forward, it was repelled by a dazzling 8 trigrams that emitted a golden light. The phantoms pounced forward and did not leave any room for maneuver. This pounce used up all of their strength. Hence, their entire figure was struck by the light from the 8 trigrams and instantly disappeared into the air, leaving behind only a blood-curdling scream that reverberated in the air. Hearing such a scream in the middle of the night shocked the Qin family members so much that they wanted to rush over to take a look. However, when they remembered Feng Jiu's instructions, they could only suppress the worry in their hearts and continue to wait. Meanwhile, in the side room, the unexpected scene shocked the few phantoms. They stared blankly as one of the phantoms disappeared into the air. Their eyes were filled with fear, and they all took a few steps back. What's going on? This brat has a treasure on him. We can't get close. You didn't have any last night. How come you have a treasure on you tonight? Who did this? The phantom spoke and tried to move forward again. However, it was the same this time. Before they could touch the person lying quietly on the bed, they saw a light emitting from his chest and bouncing them away. Hiss! How strange! This brat is wearing an 8 trigrams ancient jade on his chest. One of the ghosts said hatefully. He was somewhat unwilling to let go of the body that he had guarded for so many years. Then what should we do? We can't get close to this kid. We can only leave first and think of a way. That ancient jade is very powerful. It's not an ordinary jade. If we force our way in, I'm afraid we'll end up with our souls scattered. Then let's go first. The ghosts were discussing about leaving, but at this moment, a gentle voice with a hint of laughter was heard. They were so shocked that they let out a low cry and quickly gathered together. Since you're here, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Fengjiu stared at the phantoms with great interest. The corners of his lips curled into a devilish smile. Chapter 3240. It was a woman. She was dressed in tattered clothes, but had a beautiful face. She was lazily lying on the soft couch with a walking stick by her side. She stared at them with a teasing and evil charm. Being stared at by this woman's cold eyes, they couldn't help but be shocked and instinctively wanted to run. However, just as they were about to float out of the room and quickly leave, the woman's voice sounded. She slammed the walking stick in her hand on the ground, and a soul-binding array appeared on the ground, trapping them inside. Since you're here, do you think you can still escape? Fengjiu narrowed her eyes and stared at the ghosts. Let us out. Who are you? We have no enmity with you. Why do you want to harm us? Hearing the ghost cries, Fengjiu chuckled and picked up the gourd that her sister, Wanyin Qianhua, gave her. She twisted the lid open and pointed the mouth of the gourd at the ghosts. You can only blame yourselves for being ghosts. Instead of staying where you should be, you came out to bring disaster to the world. It would have been fine if I hadn't met you. But since I've met you, how can I not deal with you? As soon as she finished speaking, spiritual power surged from the gourd in her hand, and a powerful suction force suddenly sucked the ghosts into the gourd. As the ghosts were cleaned up, the cold aura in the room seemed to silently dissipate. She shook the small gourd and put it on her waist. After glancing at the soul-binding array on the ground, she formed a seal with both hands and removed the soul-binding array on the ground. She finished all this in less than the time it took for a stick of incense to burn. She lit up the lamp in the room. When the lamp lit up, she was surprised to see that the person who was supposed to be asleep on the bed had already woken up and was looking at her with his eyes wide open. Awake! Fengjiu raised her eyebrows in surprise. You saved me. Second young Master Qin looked at the strange woman. He wanted to get up, but found that he had no strength. He could only ask, Who are you? I'm your savior. Fengjiu said as if she was telling the truth. She limped forward and sat down beside the bed. She reached out and naturally felt his pulse. Yes, your vitality has recovered a lot. Your pulse has also become stronger. Most importantly, the evil aura in your body has dissipated. I estimate that you should be fine after soaking in the medicinal bath again. As Fengjiu spoke, she withdrew her hand and saw him looking at her in a daze. She asked, What? Do you still have something to ask? Who are you? Second young Master Qin asked. He felt that this woman was very strange. She was actually in the same room as him in the middle of the night. Moreover, she had a calm expression. In the scene just now, those Fengjiu stood up and looked at him with her walking stick in one hand. You can call me Ghost Doctor. As she spoke, she turned around and laid down on the soft couch. She took a blanket from the side and covered herself with it. She closed her eyes and rested. Have a good night's sleep. When you wake up tomorrow, you'll find that your body has recovered a lot. Fengjiu narrowed her eyes as she spoke. She ignored him and went to sleep. Naturally, she forgot to inform the Qin clan members who couldn't sleep and were waiting. As a result, she made them wait for an entire night. It wasn't until the next day that Patriarch Qin and the others hurried to the courtyard when the sky brightened up. Chapter 32:41. Hearing his father's voice from outside, second young Master Chin, who was lying in the room, was stunned. His father? How could his father let a woman stay in a room alone for an entire night? Even if it didn't mean anything to him, the other party was still a woman. This would damage her reputation. At this moment, the woman lying on the soft couch stood up and walked out with her walking stick. The door opened, and he heard his father's careful voice. "Ghost Doctor, how is my son? Is he all right?" Feng Jiu yawned and said, "And you can boil the medicine again today. There's no need to boil it. Just let him sit in the bathtub and soak. When the water turns cold, change it to hot water." As she spoke, she paused and said, "Didn't you arrange a courtyard for me? Find someone to bring me there." "Yes, yes." He hurriedly turned back and said to his eldest son behind him, "Bring the ghost doctor over personally. Ghost Doctor, this way, please." Eldest young Master Chin gestured for her to leave. Feng Jiu nodded slightly and followed him out of the courtyard to another courtyard. After she left, Patriarch Chin, Madam Chin, and the others all rushed to the side room. When they saw their second son, who had already woken up, they were extremely excited. That's great, that's great. It's good that he's awake. It's good that he's awake," Patriarch Chin said excitedly. For a moment, he didn't know what to say and just nodded happily. Hunger. Mother was worried to death. "Quickly let Mother take a look." Madam Chin quickly walked forward and looked him up and down. She couldn't help but cry. "You've been unconscious for days and nights." Mother was worried to death. Second brother. The young girl also happily squeezed forward and called out, "Father, Mother." Second young Master Chin called out from the bed. Because his body was weak, his voice was weak. He lay on the bed and asked, "Father, who was that person just now?" "She's the ghost doctor. She saved you." Patriarch Chin briefly explained the situation to him. On the other side, eldest young Master Chin also came over after sending Feng Jiu to rest. Entering the side room, he strode towards the inner room. Seeing that his second brother had already woken up, he couldn't help but reveal a smile. The ghost doctor really has a way. I didn't think that second brother would be able to wake up so quickly. This is really great. Big brother. Second brother, your body is weak. You should take care of yourself first. Don't worry, the ghost doctor said that as long as you take care of your body, there won't be any big problems in the future. On this side, their family was gathered together. On the other side, Feng Jiu was lying on the bed, flipping through books on talismans. She flipped through them all morning until it was almost noon. The corners of her lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile. "You still won't let me find it?" She turned over and got off the bed. She limped over to the table and sat down. She took out cinnabar and talisman paper from her space and began to draw talismans according to the instructions in the book. Her first attempt was unsuccessful. However, after wasting more than 10 talisman paper, she finally drew a talisman that could be cracked. "I have to try." There was a bit of eagerness in her eyes. She stretched out her weak leg and rolled up her trousers. She held the talisman between her two fingers. With a thought, a flame shot out from between her fingers and ignited the talisman. Crack! You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.